Hello, I'm Riker, aka Karma X. Joining me is the ever Scottish co-host Dex, and you're watching one of the top Eve talk shows to air every Sunday at around 2100 Eve time. It's time for Between Two Keepstars. This week we have actually a huge collection of guests. Do you guys want to go through and introduce yourselves?
Come on, guys, alphabetically, if nobody's going to pluck up the courage to go first.
Hello, I am Dr. Spodgermain, and I am the greatest CSM candidate that has ever walked the goddamn planet.
I'm Phantomite, and I'm the greatest ever successful CSM candidate to have walked the planet.
Oh, be like that, do it.
Hello, I'm Tidor, and I'm the next CSM.
Ouch.
You're supposed to say the greatest as well.
I don't have illusions of grandeur like others.
Feels
What a claim. Vily,
stabbed.
your turn, mate. And unfortunately, I didn't bring a translator, so if someone can tell Vily to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Vily. I do things in EVE Online. I am a CSM representative. How are you doing today?
There you go.
So a lot has happened this week.
Asked a direct question there. You were asked how you were doing.
I am doing average.
Everything's it's all over the place now. We should just give up.
We tried. Anyway, so welcome you all. We've got a pretty, well, I want to say interesting show, but it's an average show. Timed out today. A lot has happened. We had Black Ops changes, CSM voting began, as well as things, I want to say things happened in the war, but I don't really know. So yeah, let's get right into it. First off, we have the Black Ops changes. So just to get into those here. So basically, the Black Ops are getting a bunch of new bonuses and doing a little bit of balance work on them, as well as getting a new Black Ops group jump. So I guess to start us off, how does everyone feel about these changes?
Quite like the introduction of this pseudo-filament type behavior, and I look forward to seeing what differences it makes compared to just a regular bridge.
I like the DBS buff. It's interesting to see. I mean, they're still far from viable now outside of a particular niche, but interesting to see them hurt more.
Well, ultimately, you need to be realistic with yourself here. As much as the buffs are fantastic and they're lovely, no one is going to risk that level of expense en masse. But,
and one of the things is and of course it's kind of almost like a meme because it is so expensive, but the Marshal is insane now. I've seen people pushing 3,000-4,000 DPS out of the thing.
It can be. But there was a mention of reduction in fuel cost. Does anyone have any numbers on that at all? I haven't had the time to take a look.
I don't have the exact numbers, but you know, something key that a fuel reduction on Blops does is it really pushes your effective range. You know, without having to bring a fuel truck with you, it really is something that you can go on kind of longer adventures with, and I think that fits this ship type and playstyle very nice.
That's the part that makes me very happy.
Can you can you elaborate on the fuel reduction bit, because it might be the bit that I skim read.
Well, second paragraph, as part of the Into the Portal update, all Black Ops battleships will have a new ability built into the jump portal generator, enabling them to perform a new group jump with a fleet at a much reduced fuel cost over using a bridge. So
I see.
Obviously, originally, whenever performing the jump, it's based on mass. But if you're going with the group, I would imagine that's brought into account.
I was waiting for somebody to do this, and I thought it was going to be somebody in the channel here with us, but it turns out that somebody has activated my trap card in the chat Charlie EB, not adding the ability to warp cloaked is stupid though. Charlie, I would really love to hear your reasoning for wanting, for why Black Ops battleships should have CovOps cloaks fitted.
So
I
can
really
gank
want to
explorers,
type.
obviously.
There is also another trap card that is waiting to be activated that I'm waiting for somebody to say, but I'm not going to give anybody any clues about that one there. But
Is it unfair that I know what it is?
Rourke
It is
mining
un-
in low. Rourke mining in low sec. Is that it?
No, this is about the blob. This is about blops and these changes. So, does anybody here, before I rant about it, know why it would be a stupid idea to give CovOps cloaks to Black Ops battleships?
What?
I would just recycle what you said in your own Discord. So I'm just
We,
going to
look, I mean, Charlie. Thank you for answering. You know, I don't want to, be too aggressive about this, but yeah, this reasoning here. He says, if it is to kick around with bombers, then you should be able to fleet warp with them without decloaking everybody. But again, why should that be a thing? Here's the thing, right? The key thing about Black Ops battleships is they have extremely large set of powerful positioning options available to them. They have incredible while cloaked speed, so they can move around on grid while cloaked for cloaked ships, very fast speed. They can fit a micro jump drive, and they can jump to sinos. They have massive positioning and mobility abilities already. Now, if you were to give Black Ops battleships a CovOps cloak, think about what you do with smaller ships with CovOps cloaks now, which kind of, well, maxes out at some cruiser-sized ships, really. If you creep up on people in CovOps ships, you do it often with these cruisers and frigates. Now, if you gave this ability to Black Ops battleships, then now what people already do with cruisers and frigates, they would now be doing with a 1,200 DPS battleship that has an MJD, that has a jump drive, and that has battleship EHP. It would be stupidly unbalanced, and it would massively expand their area of power in the different types of PvP they could do if they could fit a CovOps cloak. That is why they should never gain one.
Do you think that it would also like hurt the use of cruisers to do hunting? Because I mean, if they can use a
Yes.
covert battleship,
Yeah, of course it would. I mean, cruisers will always have higher warp speeds and on-grid speeds. That's what they got going for them. But yeah, Black Ops battleships don't need it. Typically, this idea has entered most people's heads because they see Black Ops and they see other ships with CovOps cloaks, and quite frankly, they're thinking one single step in the future rather than anything else that branches away from that. And they're like, oh, I want it to align. I want it to align with everything else. Why? Let's have some variety in this game. And also, there are some things which take at least a tiny bit of skill to pull off with a Black Ops in its cloak, which would essentially be giving it CovOps, would be giving that ability to everybody, no matter their skill level of playing the game instead.
yeah,
That answers your question then.
Yeah.
but too. I mean, again, cruisers seem to already fill that niche.
They do. They do.
Dor, Vily, do you have anything to offer in terms of this update? What are your thoughts on that?
I thought the update is good. I think not everybody's happy with it, but nobody's happy with everything. They always want more, and they don't always really consider the second and third order effects of the things they want. Obviously, Phantomite covered a good chunk of that, and there's not a ton for me to really go over for an additional point. The reality is Black Ops battleships are a popular ship choice because they're battleships, and they also say Black Ops in front of them, which makes it really cool for people. Somebody wants them to be used really heavily, but if you give them advantages that make them too strong, they will quickly become extremely problematic in
It would
both
just
meta
expand
and
the areas they could PvP in, the different gameplay styles that they could be effective in, when really they should be, and they are, very nicely focused at the moment.
the last thing we need is, gate camps of 20 Black Ops battleships hovering around the gate, ready to cloak and warp out a second anything goes wrong.
It's
They already
Nice.
have
the
that to a
update.
degree, but not the
but-
way a covert ops cloak would ever give them.
You're just looking at the changes for the Widow now, and I think these changes definitely make sense. They sort of help to solidify the Widow in sort of like that tanky-esque role, whereas it's getting additional shield resistances, additional ECM target jammer strength to keep essentially the lock on it, and rapid heavy, a damage increase is also good. The one change that I thought was kind of weird was the thing they did for the Sin, where they gave it a 10% bonus to logistics drones transfer amount. That one was kind of weird, but okay. I think it would have made a little bit more sense if it would have given it to the actual like remote repair modules, seen as Sins are used, can also be used as a logistic ship. But in my experience, I haven't known them to use rep drones.
I mean, typically,
Well,
a
the
lot of
reality
people,
is nobody uses rep drones because rep drones are mostly garbage right now, right? There's a variety of things that are wrong with rep drones, so they don't get used.
people have often used covert ops Tech 3 cruisers set up for logistics with these things here, and I'm not sure how effective Sins are going to be in this compared to bringing CovOps Tech 3s to fill the role of Black Ops logistics. But I'm interested to see what it does. I mean, obviously, them being drones means that this remote rep power is killable. So I think people are still going to bring that. I get the feeling that this was kind of like a wild card edition, sort of like I'm not exactly sure what to give the Sin. Let's roll the dice, give it this, and see if anybody can make anything out of it. And I'm interested to see how it goes.
Well, I mean, the reality is the Sin is already like one of the strongest Black Ops battleships just by the nature of its variety or variability in terms of how you can fit it. So giving it really powerful bonuses probably would have been dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, they've upped its DPS if you're fitting large hybrid turrets, which people don't often do with it. People might often, well, as I've seen a lot of very blingy PvP videos of people expertly using the Sin loaded with newts in the highs, because they're hunting expensive ratting ships, things like that. So I'll be interested to see if people start fitting some actual turrets to this thing now that it's had that damage bumped up a little bit.
I haven't had a look at any of the numbers or anything like that, but with the new buffs, do the Black Ops ships compete with the Marauders now?
No.
Or is not close yet?
No. They don't match the DPS application or tank.
Well, that question fucking answered then, isn't it?
And that's good, It's they should never compete with Marauders on those aspects. They are different ships for different purposes, and I think that keeping those two things notably apart from each other is very important. I mean, think about this, right? If they made Black Ops battleships have notably more tank, then people would start using these for Dead Space complex PvE because they can move them around basically completely safely. And I don't want to see.
They already are doing that constantly.
I know, yes, they are already doing that, but not as much as I thought. Now, an unfortunate thing that obviously nobody here can verify, but I can certainly say that I was shown the numbers of how much these battleships were being used in PvE, and it was lower than I expected, to be honest. But I don't want to see that get higher with these, because these ships are all about mobility, and in a way that would translate to massive additional safety. So yeah, I don't want. I think that these changes haven't particularly gigabuffed them in terms of PvE, and I think that's a good thing.
People are going to use ships for whatever reason they want to use a specific ship.
Well,
and you're
they're
not
going
gonna
to use the
use
most
certain things.
effective one. They're going to use the most effective one. And I don't want blocks to
Exactly.
become the most effective one.
But if I feel like 3 sins are better than 3 rattlesnakes, I'm going to use 3 sins regardless of
Well,
whatever.
yeah, you're
what
welcome
everyone
to do
thinks.
something suboptimal if you like, mate. I'm not going to stop you.
It's a point of view for many
Okay.
people.
One of these changes says remove 5% ship inertia bonus and increase the base ship inertia modifier to 25%. Did they literally just take that 25% bonus that you would have gotten from training Black Ops to level 5 and just make it an innate bonus? Is that
Yes.
what I'm reading?
Yes. I believe that there's currently a problem on Sissy with the way that bonus is applied, but that is a known minor mistake that they are addressing at the moment.
All right. And then another thing was the Marshal. The Marshal is traditionally a very powerful ship, and it looks like with these changes, it just got even more powerful. Because if you look at it, you've got turret damage increased from 5% to 10% for all the turrets and the missiles. But I'm kind of okay with that because the Marshal's still ridiculously expensive.
They do have a weird tanking bonus based on the pilot's security status. You can get up to 50% effectiveness from armor repairs and shield boosters if you have a +5 security status.
And are you claiming you have +5 here, Phantomite, being a low sec? Is that what you're claiming right now?
Well, it says it right here. 10% bonus security status gains from destruction of non-capsulated pirates or finer ship armor repair and shield booster effectiveness increased by a percentage equal to 10 times pilot security status with a floor of 0 and a ceiling of 50%.
Mm-hmm. But
so yeah, cool.
Would this ever actually apply to you being a low sec guy?
Oh, I would have a 0% bonus.
Yeah, I didn't.
Given that I'm, but also I don't have a lot of ISK, so I'm not going to be flying a Marshal, so I don't really care at the moment.
I had a Marshal for a little bit and I didn't know how to fit it, so that was my biggest thing. It's just like, oh, you've got so many fitting options. How do I go about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's basically hands down. It would be missiles every single time because of the range, lack of cap use, damage type choice. Basically, I think if you're not using some form of missiles on the Marshal, you're not really using it very well.
Oh, it depends what you want to do, right? Like,
yeah, if I wanted to
blasters are
limit
an option
myself
if
in
you
any
want to
way.
go fucking crazy. Lasers are an option. It's there's.
Yeah, but why would you fit lasers given that you have reduced damage type choice, less range, and less application, and cap use?
It's all a matter of the individual and how crazy you actually are, I suppose.
It is. Like I said to T-Door, everybody's welcome to do something suboptimal if they wish. This is a sandbox game.
Usually Marshals go with torpedoes or blasters. So if you don't have like torpedo skills, you're gonna go blasters, and the other way around, maybe. Depends.
So I don't know whether you have heard, but there's a minor conflict, minor war ongoing at the moment, and I suppose this is where you come in, Vily. Could you give us a kind of review as to what's going on from your perspective? It's kind of mandatory. We just kind of get this part of the show out of the way every week.
There's a war going on. Delve is under siege. All structures in Delve have been killed, aside from structures inside the 1DQ constellation. Actually, I mean, technically, there's like a couple small structures still left, but for the most part, an encirclement and siege of 1DQ is underway.
Is it a small Gaulish village in the middle that you're unable to get into?
No, I would say it's a well-fortified position. They put a lot of work into it. They've managed to hold us off for 4 or 5 weeks now, just based on the strong defensive advantages of the game right now between Citadels, Tether, etc., and Supers, obviously. But we'll just keep looking for that chink in the armor, and we'll find it eventually.
There's been a lot of talk saying that, there's been some talk from a specific side saying that things have been slowing down. And me personally, I haven't really noticed what feels like as many fleets going on. Granted, I've been sort of taking a bit of a break from the war, which is actually great about being in Pappy. It's that we don't really need to show up for every timer. It's not like we're being rage pinged. Is there any truth to that? Have things, I guess, slowed down just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in a situation where we're not under any real pressure to push the tempo. The siege favors us in every real way. So,
I mean, I guess that by the very nature of a
and-
siege, it goes hand in hand with both sides having slower, more grueling activity.
well, I mean, the reality is like we're in a situation where there's just not a ton of targets except for inside this heavily contested, highly dense area. So by nature, unless we're actually making what is effectively going to be to some degree the final push this week, then those ops are just going to be slower, right? Like there's just not a whole lot to do. We spent so much time keeping things within reason that it's just kind of the way it is.
Do you think this is too long for a war to go on, for this to be something sustainable that people will stick around for over and over again?
Well, I mean, for us, we've built this campaign on the assumption that it would be sustainable, right? We knew that going into it that we have to kill 4,000 fucking structures or whatever it is.
I mean,
the
are people going to want to do this again? Are people going to want to do this again? So how does the game have to change to make sure that wars are shorter and more decisive in the future so that the game can continue?
You have to be able. I don't know. Like it's an incredibly it's an incredibly tricky question that I don't have a good answer to.
I will be fair, and I will say that is a bit of a trap question, because I know that there isn't one single right answer for it.
Like the size of the groups is part of the problem. The way the citadel mechanics work is part of the problem. The damage cap on structures is part of the problem. Super capitals are part of the problem. Like, it's just a quagmire of issues that
do you believe that the increasing cost like across the board in terms of the manufacturing of ships, do you believe that would have a collateral effect on a kind of on a long-term basis? Because obviously putting out that sizable fleets, obviously there's going to be a much larger loss on the battle report. So do you think that will have an effect on?
Not in the way you're thinking about it. Like the loss size in the battle report is just not, really a big issue, right? It's can we supply these ships again if we lose them? Can we, do all this again? And, obviously the answer is, no. In many cases, right? Like supers can't be replaced, caps can't be replaced. Even subcap battleship doctrines are extremely difficult to replace due to the amount of minerals they require. Like there is no question in anybody's mind that the mineral changes have affected the war. And if we had to do it again, would they play a part in the decision? Absolutely, because they played a part. Like the way the mineral environment was at the start of this war played a role in the decision of this war. So I mean, there's no doubt it would play a role. It's just, would it play that role? I don't know. The dynamics have changed so drastically. Like it's hard to imagine going back to that time with these mechanics.
But like the changing the dynamics of the game is obviously a good thing because we like for such a long term, over such a long period, we were in almost a kind of routine when it came to what we had available and what we didn't have. If that makes sense. Would you guys agree?
I don't really know what you mean.
Like the way the game worked, and I said it was there wasn't really any changes that made there weren't really any changes made to the game that disrupted things so significantly until now. And obviously with the mineral changes and the way things are manufactured, with such a dramatic change in dynamic, it's been good overall. Hello, welcome.
So real quick, I'd like to introduce Maldavius, the leader of Stribog. Thank you so much for coming, and sorry about the miscommunication.
It'll be fine. Nice to see you guys.
So, real quick,
I just got Vily to admit that everybody in the game is far too big at the moment.
Wow. Let's go
I
ahead
mean,
and
that's why that's why the part of that's one piece of the war, right? Like, is we need to downsize one group so that all the other groups can downsize too, right?
Are you going to downsize when you win?
Well, do you think the size of just test, for example, would be a reasonable size? I think that's like what a reasonable large size group should be.
How big is test?
Like fills a full fleet, like, and that's pretty much kind of the main
How
capacity.
big is test?
Like in terms of what? Like
how many characters, active or inactive, are in test?
I don't know, honestly know off the top of my head, to be honest.
Okay.
Like
Maybe somebody in chat will
Zekiel
find it.
7-day active hovers between 1100 to 2100 or 2300. I think we peaked at, but so that like if you exclude cap bullets, that's probably somewhere in the range of like 1,000 active PvP players every 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick before we
the general
go on,
plan is to grow so large that you choke out another group and then not be large anymore somehow. I don't really.
Well,
follow the
we're
logic.
like a coalition of groups, right? Like we're not one specific group.
Sure, but are you going to fight afterwards? Are you guys going to break apart and actually fight to,
Yeah.
honor what you said of like make smaller groups?
That is the plan. Like,
What's-
nobody signed up to like be the big blue Donna, despite like the propaganda stuff. Like it's just like this is the only way to accomplish this, right? If we were if it was just test versus goons just outnumber us by like 5-1 every fight, and we can't go on the offensive, and obviously that's part of the goal, right? And it creates that situation.
Let's do a hypothetical that let's say outright. And I'm not going to hold you to this in case you want to clip that. Let's imagine that in an hour's time, you win the war and goons are gone. What is the time scale for when this coalition is dismantled?
It would depend on the way in which goons are gone, but like I would say in a month or two, most of us would be back in our home space. Would be my guess.
Okay. If it takes 3 months, I won't come back at you with that.
Well, I mean,
every hypothetical.
Yeah, moving things of that size, it does take a long time. So that does make sense.
Like like it's not going to be an overnight thing by any means. Don't get me wrong. But like there's a lot of, I don't want to say tension because that gives the wrong impression, but like grudges that are being ignored for the greater good, right? Like Frat and AM want to kill each other. There's PL wants to kill certain people. Like everybody here is here as a group because we understand that it's important, not because there's nothing underlying, right? Because there's lots underlying. It's just if this isn't done, then the game is stuck under that kind of hegemony.
So real quick before we continue, since Maldavius just joined us, he never got the chance to introduce himself. So Maldavius, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh yeah, sure. So I'm my name is Maldavius in game. I'm the leader of Stribog Clade, which is the largest Triglavian alliance in the game. We helped build Pochvin throughout Invasion Phase 3 by going out and basically living out of bowheads and taking stars all around New Eden. And then once we got here, we've just been living here ever since. It's a really, really rough place to live. There's a lot of fights going on. I think our latest battle report had 120 billion ISK brawl, and in which we lost. Actually, we lost the last Asbel and Pochman. So it's it's a crazy place, and I live there, and I really, really like this absurd corner of New Eden, basically. So yeah, outside of that, I've been a game developer for about 16 years. So I've been in the gaming industry a really long time. About 5 years of that was spent in QA, and I've got a whole bunch of different stuff that I've got up on my CSM campaign that I'd like CCP to change, and different things that I'd like them to change in terms of their communication tactics. So I'll put that up in chat real quick.
Free for anyone who's running for CSM. If you'd like to post your CSM stuff, feel free. So I've noticed that there hasn't really seemed to be a lot of mainline coverage of what's happening in Pochman. So I guess Mal, what's going on? I've heard through the grapevine that people just want to go and kill Stribog because. Again, I have no context for this. So I was wondering, what's going on?
Yeah, so we started a little war with Electus Matari, which is another Edencom group that Edencom and Triglavians are like red versus blue, right? So CCP basically threw 2 flags on the ground and said, go fight. And it worked. It absolutely worked. We're the red side, they're the blue side. And we started fighting them, and they started bat phoning, and more bat phones started getting involved, and we started bat phoning to defend, and it started turning into this just massive, ridiculous war. And then Wrecking Crew got involved, and we don't really know why Wrecking Crew got involved. Alexis Matari says that they didn't call on them, but it seems pretty likely that they did. I'm going to call them out there. It's a little strange. And Wrecking Crew is a much larger group than us. We don't really have a way to fight that. We're first year, like 1 year old RP related alliance when it comes down to it. Very heavy into the Triglavian RP stuff. So fighting a group that has like 100 systems of SOV, you're not really gonna beat that overall. You're gonna die to a war of attrition. So we've been fighting that. We've been fighting that each time. It's been a hell of a battle. It's been really, really fun. We won a bunch of timers, and then eventually we finally lost the Asbel. And the Asbel was the final Asbel in all of Pochman. And out of that, we've had some really funny high moments. We've had some cool battles. We've had some cool wins throughout that. We killed Seto in one of his Titan pods. Very funny. You were in a Helios. I don't know why you were in that pod, but it's ours now. And yeah, it's just been that, man. Like we felt most of the time like we've been punched down on, so we've had to call on everyone that we possibly could. But in each of those form-ups, our alliance has had the most number of people on field from our side. And in each one of those battles, their alliance, Electus Matari, has had nearly the least number of people on field for their offensive. So it's felt very good for us. We know that we're doing everything that we can to defend our home. But when it comes down to it, Pochman's way too easy to invade. You can filament in from literally anywhere. You can take a 15-man fleet and just appear in there. You can use the wormholes to bypass everything, and you can't really do hull control because all of the wormholes open inward, meaning you can't really defend them in any tangible way because they open up from K space. What are you going to do? Gank them with catalysts on the outside? Not really useful because the wormhole doesn't appear on the inside until they go through it anyway. And then outside of that, like the gates are open now. With the gates being open, they can just pass through the gates. So you've got all these different ways to be invaded, and it's not like nullsec where you can put up a Sinojam or anything like that, right? Like a filament can't be jammed. It's instant, puts them right in the region in the designated area they're trying to go to, either Kryvelis or Perun, stuff like that. They can actually choose what area they're going into, and they just appear, and there's nothing you can do to counter it. So most of these battles are going to end up being N+1. Bar none. There's no real tactical advantage in the space other than invading. If I was going to, if I was on the outside and I saw what was going on the inside, I would be doing the same thing because it's so easy to invade right now.
I mean, Pochman's only going to get better as fewer and fewer citadels are available there, right?
No, I don't think so. Like the thing is we've actually seen a couple of the systems in Pochman that are dead now. Since the gates have opened, we've lost about half the citadels over all of Pochman. We've lost a couple of them as well. Like we've actually lost, the Asbel. That's the big one because the whole region can't do, meaningful production now without that. But those systems that are dead, systems like Otanumi, systems like Attila, they either have only NPC stations now, or they have no NPC stations and no citadels. And what we've seen from them is no one goes there. They're just dead. No one actually interacts with these systems anymore. And if it's CCP's plan to glass the region so that more people get like cool subcap PvP out of it, I don't think that's going to pan out. I really don't. I think that it's just going to end up being a dead space area that no one goes to, or they use it only for transportation. And the people that are most invested in this type of content, they're most invested in the lore and like the Triglavian versus Edencon battles, they're just going to leave for something else. And I don't know if that's healthy for the game. And I really don't think it is, frankly.
I mean, something I thought from the beginning, which they should have designed from when the moment they knew they wanted to have some Triglavian spaces. I'm completely puzzled as to why movement through and into Parchment doesn't include some form of abyssal travel mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, what I was
Like, for
expecting
instance,
was...
why isn't it that going between systems requires that you can only take, like, as an example, a maximum of 5 people in cruisers through like a chain of 3 abyssal pockets before you can get to the next system, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool. I mean, the thing is as it stands, basically, Pochfin is a subway system. You know, it is. It is. You go underground, you can go across New Eden very quickly, and then you can pop back out again. But there's really no point in living here. Like, hands down, we do it because we think the Triglavian stuff is cool, but there is no real point in living here. Frankly,
You making any
or
money?
anywhere else? No, not anymore. We were for basically in the 7-month period that we've been living there. The first 3 months, all of the content in the region was completely broken. It didn't actually produce any value whatsoever. The sites that were there, there's only one major PVE site. It's called a Dread site.
So let's
pays
talk
you out
about
a
the
lot.
4 months then, if the first 3 months were rubbish.
Yeah. So of the last 4 months, like basically that content was, I want to give people context though. That content was completely broken. It would either give you negative standings or wouldn't pay out ISK, or like the site would never complete. It would just destroy everyone in the site. Like it was bad. We sat around and basically tested it once a week, gave CCP bug reports. They'd go and try and
Yeah,
fix it, and then
but
try and do it again.
Everybody on the CSM and in the public has seen the MER that showed the huge,
Sure, yeah.
gigantic amounts of money coming out of it.
Yeah. So after that, what we got was about a 1.5 months of, hey, the dread sites actually work. And we started farming them and we started getting good at it. And then other groups started moving in, people like Road Capel, people like Cat for You, and we started fighting over them. We have some pretty cool battle reports from that too. Pretty big farming fleets that just got dropped on and deleted, mostly Lashaks, stuff like that, because it's good. Lashaks are good for killing large targets and you're fighting a dreadnought. So put a bunch of Lashaks on field, you burn the thing down. We got really efficient at doing it. We weren't the only group doing it. So I think in total we made about 460 to 500 billion ISK as an alliance, but it wasn't for the alliance. That's the line members. We only have a 5% tax rate, so we got about 25, 26 billion out of that month. The next month it's dropped considerably. Now we're down to about 4.5 billion, and we're still the people that are running them the most. So like, that's not good. Like the region
4.5 billion on what time scale?
In Texas. Over
in taxes. So what does the average member earn on average who's running this?
I don't know. Like the thing is I don't pull the metrics for the average member. What I pulled is the total overall that our line members are making and the total overall their alliance is making. I put it into our own, personal MER, and then I release that out to the alliance. Because the thing is I want it to be known like what the people who are actually living here are getting. And the thing is we've got timers every day because it's very easy to invade, and it's also got wormhole mechanics, so it's every day 24-hour timers on everything. Super annoying. On top of that, you've got the seagulling issue where people can just steal ticks from it. So I think this is
that's still not fixed. That's crazy because that's awful.
It's still not fixed. It's gotten worse actually. In fact, I just reported another method up to them where they don't even have to attack any of the stuff in the site now. They just get paid, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, you can't stop them from doing this exploit, and CCP still has done nothing about it. And it's been 4 months of us actually being able to engage with the content with this going on. So the worst part about it is that's not going to reflect in the MER. Those people are still getting ISK from the site. They're just taking your ISK and not actually engaging with the content in any way. And it's going to show up on the MER as the region has produced this value, but it hasn't. It's only produced value for 1 million alts that are parasiting a site, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. That's obnoxious. So I'm waiting to see how that goes.
Declared as an exploit?
No, they won't declare it an exploit, but as someone who's been in the game industry a long time, this is an exploit. You have a player that is not engaging with the content. You have a player that is sitting in the site 5,000 to 10,000 kilometers away, cloaked up. He decloaks before the site completes, and he gets a portion of your payout, and then he recloaks. Where is the counterplay there? Where's the PvP? Where's the contention? Where's the clash? There's none of it in there. There's nothing you can do about this. So it's obnoxious. I want CCP to fix this. We've been talking about this a long time, and they just won't. And if you have, 15 people is how many you need to do that site. You do 15, and then suddenly 20 people decloak, and your payment goes from around 200 million for doing that site down to $1 million for every player. No one's going to want to do the content, so they don't. They just don't do them anymore. Or
Rubicon
they do
in
them and they
chat
try
just
to.
says, "Does the decloak observatory not work in Pochven?" I mean, even if it was working, it's 10,000 kilometers, and they can just MWD and cloak again.
Yeah, we've tried doing snake pods with Dramules. We've tried doing like super fast stuff to try and catch them. You just can't reach them in time because the thing is they only decloak once the Zernitra comes out and starts killing the building. At the very end of these sites, there's a Zernitra that spawns. It attacks an Edencom building, and it does damage. So you have a time limit. You can't actually stop DPS. You can't stall the site, and they decloak right as the Zernitra gets the thing into armor. You have 10,000 kilometers to make up in a dead space. You can't reach them in time. There's no way to do that in the game. And then the Zernitra kills the building for you and you win. And you're like, well, guess that's it. Cool sight. And you just watch your ISK flow away. But the part that makes me sad about it is the MER is going to probably reflect that we've made a bunch of money again and people are going to freak out about it. But it's not for us. It's going to these, seagulls as they're called, or it's going to other groups that are doing this exploit. And that's not good. I'm sure that it'll still show like a diminished amount of ISK for the region, but it's probably not going to be as crazy impactful as it actually is because of this. It's really upsetting though. Like honestly, like seeing, and I think the biggest problem about it is that is the only PVE content in the region that matters. One of the things that I put up to CCP that I really like them to do is take ISK out of the dread sites, make them less profitable, and put it in the other PVE sites that already exist in the region. Everything else that's in the region, the small PVE sites that exist, they pay like between around 6 and 8 million, but you need 1 to 3 billion on field to complete them. No one wants to do those. No one's going to risk that in a region that's so easy to get dropped on and so easy to get PvP'd on. No one wants to do that. Take the money out of the dread sites, put it in those lesser PvE sites, improve the amount of ISK that people can make in small gangs, and you'll get more small gang PvP, and you won't have to have only 15-man fleet fights all around the triangle. Like it's not healthy. It's not a healthy region.
You talking about this brings up the old adage of probably one sub one won't fix.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I look at it is right now Pochven's a one-trick pony. It is literally just if you want to live there, the only ISK faucet you have is the dread sites. The dread sites are broken, and that's killing people. It's choking people out, and eventually it's just going to be the couple of loyalists that are still there that are living in NPC stations, and most of the massive people that are very interested in this content, just not engaging with it and feeling disillusioned with CCP. It's been 7 months. The region is still pretty rough and pretty broken. So people are starting to fall away. They're starting to not care as much. We used to have 4 alliances in there. Now it's just us. And
hey, as a low sec person, welcome to the club, mate.
Oh, I know. I feel it. I'm not saying that I'm not saying this is the only space that needs attention. I'm just saying this space needs attention. And I agree. Low sec and faction warfare are absolutely in a terrible place right now. They're in a really, really rough place. And I super agree with you. And I guess, at the same time, like we're that weird cousin that lives in kind of wormhole, kind of, subcat PvP low sec paradise sort of thing. And it's the same for us. It really is. It's just a weird part of space that's also broken.
To be honest, faction warfare is not in a worse place than it was a few years ago. It's in the same place.
That's not good.
So, real quick, and there's been a lot of there's been some stuff flying around in Pappy saying that Stribog is an alt-goon alliance, and that I was wondering if you could just set the record straight about that.
Sure. Yeah, we're not. Like goons are a guest in our house. They helped take Niarja. So for those who don't know the invasion, right? We had to go to different stars around New Eden. We had to fight on those stars, and we had to push a little, and PVE bar one way or the other. And when you pushed it towards Striglavian, it would become low sec and then null sec, and then eventually became final liminality for certain stars. Those 27 final liminality systems are Pochven now. They got stolen. We took them. During that, the most important one was Niarja because it ripped the whole of New Eden in half. You have to go from Amar to Jita now. It's a hell of a trip because Niarja is gone. It's in Pochven. Goons did that. They pushed on our side of the war. So afterwards, after Pochven was stormed, I was like, hey, we know what you did. It's really cool. That's a really nice thing to do. we would like to have some kind of diplomatic relation with you because you guys helped build this place. I'd like you to be involved in some way. I want your members to at least experience it. And that's what we did. Like we just had them experience it. So then we had certain people come out, like individuals would start coming out and they're like, hey, this is really cool. And they tell a friend, they tell a friend, they tell a friend. There's no thing where like we're being directed by Goon. There's no thing where like we're directing Goon to do anything. We just call on them like we call on any other ally, like, hey, our building is on fire. Would you be able to send dudes? And they're like, nah, we're at a war. And that's basically it. That's normal. That seems fine. And I think it's funny because everyone wanted to put up this thing of like, oh, there's a goon behind every blade of grass. Every single person that works with them is a goon. No, dude, we're like Triangle RPers that called out to a dude that helped us like a year ago, and everyone's saying that we're now like goon alts and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of rough, to be honest with you. It's put a weird like target on our back, and it sucks. It sucks as a newer alliance to get that sort of thing with it. But dude, if no other major groups helped us during the invasion, why would we not reach out to the one that did? Why wouldn't we? Like,
So I know little to nothing about who is leadership beyond yourself in Stribog, but one thing I consistently hear as a grapevine rumor is that a significant chunk of Stribog leadership is goon or ex-goon. Is there any validity to that?
Sure. Yeah, I was in Goonstorm for 4 years, and I left because nullsec is boring. Like that's it. I was an old SA forum goon. I was into that kind of stuff. I was into being in nullsec. I fought in the Fountain War, but it just got boring, man. Like I'm not going to put any like illusions out there of like, oh, he's got no ties or anything like that. But no, I was in Goon. I was in Goon for a long time, and I left because it was boring and it wasn't that interesting. Like
I think he was asking about sort of other than yourself.
Yeah. Other than myself, Sahara Jackal, our diplomat, she used to be in Goon. Well, she is in Goon. She's got an alt in Goon. And then that's it. Outside of that, you've literally just got every single other member of leadership. We've got people like Alouetta. You've got people like Shireen Nadar. You've got people like Don Husk. None of those guys have anything to do with it. It's just us two. It's just me and Sahara that have any types of ties to Goon. And for me, I'm not even in it anymore.
The problem I have is I've spoken to somewhat senior-ish goons that have they themselves in private conversations, I'm not going to name names, referred to Stribog as proxy war.
Well, if they're saying that, then no. And if you are saying that about us, we're not going to be friends very much longer because that's not what's happening here. And if you're doing if there are people,
I claim that's that's a quote.
No. Yeah, I'm gonna be super honest with you. If there are people out there that are in Goons that are saying that we are owned in some way, or that this is a proxy war on their behalf, or they're trying to manipulate us in some way, that friendship's not going to last very much longer. So I want to if that is happening, come to me because I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in a proxy war between null blocks. I'm interested in coming in here and being cool Triglavian guys and having nothing to do with that null war stuff. The only thing that I want for my line members is I want them to have content. I want them to be able to do things. I want them to be able to go and experience something and have fun doing it. I don't care about these null politics. I don't care about the fight between these different factions.
I'm not going to name names, but I'm just going to say it would be very awkward if you knew who said that.
Probably would be.
So I could want to ask Vily, I guess. So one of the things that Vily, you have said before is that you guys will hunt the goons wherever they are. Does that include Pachman? So let's say like goons do have ties with Stribog and they're going in making all their money in Pachman and using that to help fight the war. Would Pappy realistically do anything about that? Or is that...
I mean, he just said, there are allies, and if you're Imperium allied, you're Imperium, right? So obviously,
No, that's totally separate, dude. You can't just say, "Oh, if you work together, you like that." We're also working with fraternity.
You literally 5 seconds ago said they are our allies.
Go look at the kill board. We're also working with fraternity. Are you going to go after them too?
No. Fraternity is our allies against Imperium.
Hold on.
And we're also working with fraternity. They put me on their CSM ballot. So who are you actually fighting here? Are you fighting an RP alliance or are you fighting goons?
My point of view from watching, so I'll tell you straight up, I have multiple spies in Stribog, so I just get to watch the I have no interest in Stribog other than I like to read the emails and follow the story because it's interesting because I like the whole lore thing. But the impression I got is that the working with Fraternity came at gunpoint?
No, not at all. So we went and punched Fraternity in the nose. They punched us back. We had a little war, and then we signed a nip with them. And since then, I've just talked to Noraus. Noraus is a really cool dude. He's actually really
Non-invasion pact is just another name for a coalition.
No, it's not really a coalition. We don't have a coalition with them. We're not plus.
Well, why do you need a non-invasion pact?
Because
So
they
it's
were
like a
kicking
fight
our
club.
butt, dude. Because they kicked our butt, dude. Even before the gates opened, they had 250 man like zealot fleet came into our house and owned us. Like we signed it and said, hey, don't kill us. You know.
Non-invasion pact is just an agreement on the limits of your fighting, which means you're friends.
Sure, and if we are friends, great. Then why are people attacking us for being goons when we're friends with Fraternity too? See what I'm saying? Doesn't make sense.
You are in a coalition with them, but
not a coalition. No, they're not even blue with us. Like we've reached out to them and said, hey, our stuff is on fire. You want to come help? And they've shown up and helped, and that's pretty cool.
Okay.
And you showed up.
There is
and
no
helped them
formal
also.
coalition with Fraternity. There is, hey, I'm on fire and I'm your neighbor. Would you like to come? And they do.
There have also been reports and things that I've heard of. Apparently, Stribog Kybernaut fleets, like actually on grid in Delph, helping goons fight. Again, I have no idea the truth to these reports, but Vily, Mal, like, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Because
yeah, we totally did that. We did that twice. We had an FYF fleet. None of our guys had ever experienced null block war ever. They'd never experienced any of that type of stuff. And like I said earlier, I want them to have experiences. I want them to be able to go and do cool things. And the only group that's reached out to us in any tangible way beside Fraternity now is Goon. So what we did was we put together 40 Molluses and we sent them down to Delve and we said, go have fun. Do whatever you're going to do. They weren't even, interacting with anybody else. They're just like, let's go and actually do something in this. And they got to damp a bunch of people and get some cool kills. And the thing is from the invasion, most of these players are from high sec. They've never experienced anything like this. Most of them had never even stepped into low sec before any of this, because their home got invaded by Triglavians. They chose a side. They chose our side. And then they moved into this more and more and more dangerous space. Letting them be in the last goon system, letting them be there and have that moment of like, this, I was there, that was really cool for them. And we've only done it like, I think once or twice now. And that's about it. Other than that, no one goes down there. We just sit in triangle space and fight people out here. And no, they didn't call on us for support. We decided to do that because it'd be cool for the line members, be something fun and interesting. And the thing is, and the thing that I've been saying the whole time, if any other group reached out to us and actually wanted to befriend us and do that kind of stuff, we'd probably be doing the same thing with them because we're a completely separate entity. And I know everybody wants to paint, the new guy. Oh man, you're going to be a goon. You're going to be Pandemic Horde. You're going to be Test, whatever it's going to be. It's not like that. It's an RP alliance, man. It's a bunch of people that are really interested in this storyline that CCP wrote. And everybody wants it to be, a goon behind every blade of grass. That's just not how the game works for these types of people. They're from.
So just to clarify then, you're telling me that if we had opened up a line of diplomatic communications, your primary Diplo, who is in Goons, would have had no problems with that?
Our primary Diplo who is in Goons wasn't our primary Diplo before. It was me up until everybody started bashing in on us. And I
But it's now, so what about now?
Yeah. I wouldn't have had a problem with it until suddenly all these people are attacking us and burning down our Asbel and doing all this kind of stuff. Like now we don't have any other.
You're dodging the question. Like
no, I'm not. So I'm explaining to you the context. If you guys had reached out to us, yeah, I wouldn't have had a problem with that because we didn't have any ties with anybody. There was no issue with it. But now,
so what you're saying is now you've taken a side.
No, I haven't taken a side. What I'm saying now is that is harder because the only people who have come to our aid in all of this have been Goon Swarm. And then other factions inside of the triangle. If you're going to push people into a corner and label them and do all this kind of stuff, you're really just fulfilling your own prophecy at that point.
But you're doing it if you say that you can't now team up with anybody except Goons because you are friends now.
No, I would have teamed up with other people and I still would, but nobody's talking to us. The only other people who talk to us are, Pandemic Horde sometimes and Fraternity. And like I said, we're working through with Fraternity too. So
Vily, I think it's time to dispatch a diplomat to strike up that deal.
The way I'm looking at it is you've got Wrecking Crew, which isn't really part of the war. They, from what I think and from what I see, the reason why Dreadbot came in was simply because they saw that, hey, people are fighting Stribog. They're a USTZ alliance. We're a USTZ alliance. Let's go bring our ships down and let's go and fight. Because in a similar way to Stribog, Dreadbomb came in. They wanted some content. They decided to go after Brave and really attack Catch. and hit Legacy's backline with initiative. That got them in all sorts of trouble. And with pretty much a good majority of nullsec being blue to each other, they didn't really have much in the way of content. So they said, well, we'll just go and fight Stribog.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
It seems like Pappy right now is just a lot of like a lot of talk and saying that Stribog is, a Goon Alt Alliance.
You cut out. Did you cut out or did I cut out? Hello?
No, you didn't cut out.
You're still there.
Oh, okay. I was like, did my internet die? What just happened?
Rika has technical issues every week, so this is the technical issue this week.
Yeah.
Anyways, mate, like the reality is, like, I've got nothing against you. Like, we had no problems with you guys until you started working with goons, at which point, you were an Imperium ally, obviously. And then it's like,
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Like,
I mean, the thing is you guys have to look at it as the greater picture, right? Like, we're also go talk to.
yeah,
Noros.
we absolutely are.
Oh, and I mean, go talk to Noros. We work with the fraternity all the time. So, like, where's the
Right.
issue?
But if I tell you, okay,
you say
can't
it's
let
difficult now to work with Test.
No,
Okay, so
you
let's
say
put it like
it
this:
now.
if I said, "Hey, we need you to help us kill goons in Pochman," what are you going to say?
We're not going to attack our own blues. I mean, there's diplomatic. No, listen.
Like,
listen.
I mean, what do you want me to say when you say that? Like,
Vily, there's diplomatic relations that can happen outside of, go kill the people that you've made an agreement with. We don't break our agreements with people. There's other things that can go on. Pochman is a really interesting part of space. It's a really strategically
you're blue,
interesting part
and
of
it's an
space.
agreement that you can't break. So you are allied with them.
I told you we're +5. What's the
actually, you hadn't told us
grand
until this
revelation
point.
there? What's the grand revelation of like we're +5? I've said that publicly.
Well, that means it is more than just you're an ally. You're a formal ally.
That's in my CSM post. You should probably go read it up. Like, to be honest with you, that's been public for months.
You saying it publicly isn't going to remove the fact that you said that you were implying that you were neutral on this whole thing.
No one implied that we were neutral. It's literally public and on the forum. Like, it's a
mate, like,
post.
we just had a conversation where you're like, oh yeah, if other people had approached us, then maybe different things happen. Maybe you could still approach us, and it's like,
you know why?
No, like, obviously not. Like, you're blue, you're +5. Like, you're work together. You're not gonna
that, like, goon scare again, dude. Like, no, we are a completely separate entity to them. We can make any.
Yes, you are 100% a separate entity. Nobody's not saying you're a separate entity. You're an ally, though, right?
Yes, and we could have been allied with anybody else, and we still can because we're not owned by them. Like, I know that you're like super goon and all this kind of stuff, but like, that's not us. We're a completely different group.
So can you or can you not break your allegiance with the Imperium?
We could if we wanted to, but we're not going to because they're the only people helping us.
Okay,
why would we? Why would you shoot yourself in the foot and be like, yes, I'm going to go with these other people right now? What's the point?
Like, nobody's like everybody's fine with what you got going on, man. Nobody's worried about it. It's just like the double speak is like getting to people.
Oh, no, it's not double speak, dude. Like, we're not goons. Like, everyone wants to paint it as goons. The only thing that
nobody is saying you're goons, man.
Yeah,
we're just saying.
Yeah, you are. You can't say nobody's saying you're goons when you're like, oh, it's a goon alt corp. Like, come on, don't play.
Did I say that once? No. Like, okay, but like, I don't know what to tell you. You're an Imperium ally. That is something we can all agree on, and we can work from there.
Against all authorities is a goon ally, no?
Yeah.
And they've been fighting Maldavius in Pochven.
We literally just fought them in Harva.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Pretty
checking.
Good point.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has different diplomatic agreements, but the core diplomatic agreement was the discussion.
And what is the core diplomatic agreement then, Vily?
That you are blue to the Imperium. And
we have also fought on field on behalf of Fraternity because Fraternity came and helped us. So where is the issue? Is it just because you're having any type of relationship with my
okay?
enemy,
So let me rephrase that.
Relationships with my friends.
Well, correct. Your Imperium relationship is a defining relationship. Your Fraternity relationship is a convenience relationship, right?
No, we really like Noraz. We really like Fraternity. They put me on their CSM ballot on top of everything. Do you see me on the Goon CSM ballot? Do you see that? No? Amazing.
Yeah, but their CSM ballot doesn't matter. Like, what's beyond the first 3 places? Really? You think it matters?
Anytime someone puts you on a CSM ballot, it's because they're saying that they support you in some way. They support the ideals that you have, and they, as an alliance, actually like what you're doing. If your own ally puts me on their CSM ballot and Goons doesn't, Where does that leave this, Billy?
Say that one again. If my own ally,
If your own ally, Fraternity, puts me on their CSM ballot, which they did, and Goons didn't, where does that leave this with your narrative
Because
that we're
Goons
Goons
only
and that we're,
had-
you know, Goon allies, and that's it?
Goons only had 2 spots left, and they wanted to use them for people that they wanted to put in.
Doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. If your own ally is doing this,
what spot
it's
are you in
not
the fraternity
fair.
ticket?
10, which is, you know,
Okay,
that's the
like,
lowest you could possibly have. You know, like, I get that. I get that.
We could
it's,
put
you know,
meme
anything after
candidates
4
on our
is a meme.
ballot too, but like that
Sure.
doesn't.
Yeah, no. Anything after 4 is a meme. I get that. But what I'm saying is, your own ally is supporting us. Where is the problem?
There is no problem with that. Fraternity makes their own agreements, but the
Then you
Imperium
can't
is the
say-
core.
You can't say like, oh, it's more of a big deal that you're with Goons than you are with Fraternity.
To
It's
be
the
fair, I
same.
think that both
Yes, it
points
is.
are currently a bit lost in a
I-
bit of complexity here.
Yeah. It's currently the Galaxy against Goons, correct?
Yeah, no, totally.
Okay, so you are allied to Goons.
Yes, we are plus
Okay,
5 with them. And we
so
have been the
by
whole time.
definition, that puts everybody in the galaxy to some degree against you, and then within that galaxy, people are free to make their own diplomatic agreements, right? But by default, that puts you at a situation where you have sided with one of the 2 major sides in the current galactic war. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
No,
Like,
I'm super aware, but what I'm
Okay.
also saying is, you guys could also reach out to us and talk to us. You know,
You just
Gobbins
said
did,
we couldn't,
Norhaus
like-
did. No, I said Gobbins did and Norhaus did, and you haven't yet. You're the only one who hasn't, actually.
what do we want to reach out to you though for? Like, what's the, loss?
If you're going to put out a bunch of
gain loss.
propaganda saying how interested you are in, you know, rolling Pochfin, maybe you should reach out to the people that live there.
But the people we're gonna roll are probably you. Like,
No, what would we roll?
I don't know, like whatever structures you have left, like anybody that works with Goons becomes the target, right? So chances are that means you. Like I have nothing against you at all. Like you seem like a reasonable dude. Like it's just that is the
Well-
reality, right?
Going after a alliance of 500 because they do fleets with goons is kind of petty, isn't it?
Exactly.
You can call it petty, but you can also call it efficient because it quickly shuts off all of the small alliances willing to work with them. They see that you guys get beaten down because of it. They're working with Goons. Then other alliances who are going to get given the same choice are going to go, maybe we should wait until the war's over to figure out what we want to do if we want to work with Goons, kind of thing.
I'm really glad that you guys want to, you know, go all in on an RP alliance of people who used to live in HiSec. Really well done.
Oh,
Fantastic
hold
job.
on! Don't retreat to the RP. That's just coming up fresh now. You can't retreat to
That's
that.
what that is, though. That's quite funny.
I live in HiSec.
So interject here, but could it be possible? So one of the things that could be, you know, maybe make things better is that yes, Stribog is an Imperium ally, but what if Pappy could go in and sort of say, hey, listen, Stribog could sort of be a place where Goons go after Goons are destroyed. So basically, you know, a safe place for Goons where they could go and they could leave Goons form behind. They could go to Stribog, go and live and have fun there. It wouldn't be much of a switch. It would just be, okay, you're now going and hanging out with these guys and now hanging out with these other guys who you already have a relationship with. You know, sort of like a way, I guess, out of the war for Goons.
Yeah, I mean, the
Or
thing
good
is Watchmen doesn't work like that. Even the PvE content, if you were running it all, like we talked about the Dread sites earlier, if you ran all of the PvE content in the region, like at maximum efficiency, it's about 30 people's worth of content, literally, because the sites are limited. When you have 30 people's worth of content and you have an alliance of 20,000 people, yeah, that's not going to work. So this idea, this weird narrative of like, oh, you know, Goons are going to go there and they're going to live there, and they can't. You can't put that many people in Pochfin. It doesn't work.
Sure you can. They're just gonna sit in the NPC station all day long.
Exactly. They'll be sitting in an NPC station.
Have fun
doing
kicking
nothing.
them out.
Exactly. It just wouldn't do anything.
Like for
I
me,
mean, obviously, the real problem here is that groups are far too big, which is why you need to call for allies in the first place to help defend in there.
Yeah. I think it's because the region is so easy to invade, like, you know, just filamenting in from anywhere. That's why we have to call on allies.
I mean,
That's
not
the
quite
main
as
reason.
easy to invade as regular space, but I get your point.
No, I mean, it is. It is. All you have to do is pick up a 15-man filament from Jita and you're in. Where, you know, there's no stopping that. So yeah, it is much easier than normal space.
Can I
100% so.
be an asshole for a moment and poke the
Just for a
the
moment.
agreement, the agreement with fraternity, because
Sure.
reading the mail where you announced the agreement to fraternity with fraternity to your alliance, the main bulk of the text begins, "We have finally met our match."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That
We got our butt
sounds
kicked,
like
dude.
at gunpoint, which is what. But you said it's not.
So no. So
The
here's what it
exchange
is,
for
right?
Not
We
destroying or something. The whole
Yeah,
time I've been
so-
something. In exchange for not killing that, you gave them a bunch of Astras.
No, we did not give them a bunch of Asters. We gave them one Astra house, a single one. So we gave them one Astra house inside of Wirashoto, which is our home system, right? And that was scary. You know, you're giving a foothold to a group that just kicked the living hell out of you. However, a month later, Norhouse gave it back to us with no strings attached. Literally just said, "Here, you can have this back," because he liked the relationship that we were fostering there, because we were honorable and we weren't jerks to him, and we didn't go after all of his people.
Okay,
and
but
break
that's
that agreement.
still
But
that's
wait,
still a relationship born at gunpoint.
correct. Most relationships in Eve are born at gunpoint, but they don't have to stay that way, and it didn't stay that way with fraternity. It didn't stay that way. We don't mess with this stuff.
I wouldn't call
That's
somebody
Stockholm
reaching
syndrome.
No,
out-
it's
I
not.
wouldn't call somebody bringing a gun to me and saying, "Give me your shit or I'll kill you," as reaching out.
That's not really what that was. It was us going and punching his stuff nearby because we wanted to go and get our guys some bomber experience, and then him coming back in with a 200-man fleet rolling us, and then us having some battles, winning a couple of them, and then finally we formed an agreement, gave him the Astra House. He gave it back a month later in good faith, and now he shows up for our defense. I don't know if that's I don't know if you can tear that apart as something negative, because to be honest with you, I really like fraternity and what they're doing there. I really like the agreement that we have with them, and I really like the relationship we have, because there's no expectation of defense. They just show up because they're nice and because we reach out to them and they're nice and they do it.
Yeah, I get it. It's just to me, it is very much that's at gunpoint, and it's not.
If
how
it
you
was
try
at gunpoint, why would their troops show up to come and help us defend?
because, like you said, relationships
The gun
evolve.
would be the gun would be pointing at us every single time, and they'd be like, "Lol, no," but they don't. They show up. They show up
No,
and they
because
help
there's
us.
value in keeping you there.
Yeah, you're the caretaker of their Poshman assets, right?
They can't actually dock at any of our stations, so no.
But
We've never had an agreement on that.
Do fraternity engage in any activity in Pochman?
They go around and hunt a guy sometimes. That's about it. They do some roaming fleets. That's pretty much all you ever see them doing. It's kind of cool.
So the question to you would be: could there ever be a hope of maybe an agreement between Stribog and Test, or Pappy in general?
I honestly wouldn't see why not. Like I said, we are a
Bring it
separate
down.
group from the rest of New Eden. I know that's hard to believe that, suddenly this group grows to power and grows so many people in such a short period of time, but that's what the invasion did. It was really good for the game. It allowed for these types of things to happen. And now we're in a place where everybody wants to go, who is this kid? Who is he owned by? Which puppet is he? And we're just not, We've got relationships with certain people that helped us along the way. And that doesn't mean we can't have relationships with other people. It just means that we have those relationships because they're the first ones who came and, wanted to help with us. And the fact that we're working with both fraternity and Goonswarm at the same time proves that point. So it can't be just poo-pooed away of like, oh, well, it's at gunpoint or anything like that. It's obvious, evidence that we're doing that.
Maldavius, just a question. Are you like the group in Raravos who defended the fort? Or was it
No,
other guys?
that's not us. We do show up a lot for different people's defense around Pochvan. That's what the coalition is about.
No,
for
and
the
I mean,
Pochvan coalition.
when it first started the invasion, when it was Hisek, and it was like the first system turned to Triglavians.
In Raravas? No, I think that was RPG. They were an alliance that showed up in the very beginning in Pochvan and then left after a month because it was broken. So I think you might be thinking about RPG. We had a loose agreement between all the different Triglavian groups back then. But
Yeah, because
nothing
even
super solid.
Test flew down a Maelstrom fleet from Perimeter, if you remember, Vily, or Prograd led it, and we massacred Bjorn B's Brutixes or whatever he had.
Nice.
So
A
just
long
to
time
finalize
ago.
it, the reason I kept what the hell was that? The reason I kept poking at the frat thing is you're using the frat thing as a defense to say that you're not associated with goons. Yet,
No, that's not what
I
I'm doing.
don't
We are
see-
associated with goons. We have +5 with
I'm
them. I
sorry,
haven't been
wrong.
dishonest
Hold on.
about it.
Let me correct my wording. That there's not a deeper or pre-existing or insert word here relationship with goons. You're using frat to defend that point, whereas I don't see the frat relationship as a valid defense because it came at gunpoint. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. If frat came, we come in peace. Would you like to be friends? Absolutely. But because they came with a gun and said, I'm going to paraphrase a guesstimate of, we're not necessarily winning, but we have the potential to. This fight is getting boring. Whatever. Insert words here. Let's come to an agreement and go from there. That's just, it's fundamentally different from reaching out. It's not the same thing at all.
You know, the thing is if you have a relationship that is positive with the group, to me, it doesn't really matter how that started. You know, like, yes, we started by fighting each other and like learning who our neighbors were. We're Triglavians. That's what we do. We invade areas of space and we cause havoc. And then we, disappear with filaments. We did that to fraternity. Fraternity came and punched us in the nose. We went, wow, these guys are definitely, above our weight class. We can't really fight them effectively. Let's diplo and let's talk about it, because we punched them and they punched us back, and then we became friends. I don't think that diminishes the relationship anyway. Like I said, I really like fraternity. I like Noros. I like the things that they do. I like the talks that we have. They're really honorable people when it comes to making agreements for this kind of stuff. So I like that. And if you want to diminish that, that's on you. But for me, it
It's
means
not
a lot.
about diminishing it. It's about the fact that they come from two different places, so cannot be compared when you're
For you.
discussing origins.
Yeah, for you. I think for you that is true, but for me it's not. And I think that's where the difference is for me the relationship matters to me. For you, you see it differently because it started with, a fight. And I get that. I understand where you could be coming from for that, but that's not how I see it, and I'm the one in the agreement. So,
Well, one thing too is you've got that old Eve adage of, "Hey, I got killed by this one guy. I convoed him to talk to him, and we ended up becoming best friends." Like
bingo.
that happens in Eve. And to me, it sounded like that exact situation, except on a larger scale.
That's exactly what it is for me. Like, that's a really good example.
There's a small group that lives near me, and I kind of turned up and said, "Can I have that moon, or I'll shoot you?" And they said, "Maybe let's work something out." And now things are going quite well, and we're having a good time and starting a bit of a relationship thing. So yes, that can happen. I don't doubt it.
So that's the same, and that's the thing is, like, if they show up on our defense timers when they have no obligation to whatsoever, none of the groups that work with us have any obligation to show up on these defense timers. I reach out and I say, hey, it'd be cool if you could do this. This is the last X of Pochvin, in this case, it was the Asbel. And they showed up. And that's great. That's really, really cool. And it shows to me that they care more than just, a good fights thing. They're actually fighting on our behalf, on our side, trying to stop us from losing the last Asbel and Pochvin, and we lost it. So, yes, we do have, a formal relationship with Goonswarm. Yes, we have a relationship with Fraternity. And we are a new alliance that is separate from those entities. And I know that everyone wants to paint a label on the new alliance. I understand that. And based on, the friends that we have, it's pretty easy. It's an easy narrative to win. But if other people reached out to us and could reach out to us in the future, it wouldn't change anything for us. We'd be able to work out agreements with those guys, talk to them just like anyone normal, because we're not a goon project. We're not part of the Imperium. We're a completely separate entity.
So Test were to, let's say, reach out to you, and Pappy formally reached out to you and said, "Hey, listen, we're gonna let you guys live. We believe that you guys would be a quote unquote golden, I hate to use the Matthias words, but golden bridge of retreat for goon line members who just want to leave the war." How do you think that would affect your relationship with goons? Do you think that would have anything, or do you think that things would just sort of stay the same?
To be honest with you, we don't have any agreements with goons regarding any of that kind of stuff. We don't have really any agreements with goons beyond, hey, you can dock here and you guys can experience some of the cool content of Pochvin. And the funny thing is we also have members that came over from Pandemic Horde. We have members that came over from Test. We have members that came over from Brave, because people want to leave Nullsec and go try something new. It's not just Goonswarm doing that. It's a lot of people doing that. They want to try, the subcap PvP paradise that is Pochvin. They want to try this and not get dropped on by caps. So they come here and they join us and they do that. So yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with, forming any types of agreements or talking to other people, because that is what we are. We're the last thing of, subcap PvP. This whole area of space is what this is. It's like old Eve before caps. It's such a cool place to be. So yeah, we do have other groups that are in here, and it's not just them. And we don't turn people away because they're Pandemic Horde. We don't turn people away because of any of those types of things. The only thing that we turn people away for is if they don't have enough skill points to put a Cove Ops cloak on, because you can't live here without one.
So, way you guys are kind of like an NPS, like a lot like an NPSI group, where they'll just take anyone. They just care about having fun.
We do care about having fun, but I wouldn't say we're NPSI. Like, we still do a review on people. We try to root out bad actors. We have our group that looks for spies, all that kind of basic stuff, because we do have enemies, and not null block related enemies. We've got Edencom related enemies, and we get people that come in that try to spy on us and give intel away to the people we're actively fighting, just like any other large group. So we do turn people away sometimes because of we see that they are directly a bad actor. But if they just were in a null block once, I don't really care. I don't think I would ever care, because I was in a null block once and now I'm here,
So if someone is in a null block, let's say someone in Pappy wants to create an alt and wants to go join Stribog with that alt just so that they can go and experience Podchvin content.
We've never
based
had a
off
problem
what
with
you said. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's totally fine.
Yeah, we've never had a problem with that. We have a number of people that are like that. We have people from all over the place, from different null blocks, that are doing that. And yeah, some of them are probably going, "Oh man, I've got spies in Stribog." No, you've got a character in Stribog that we don't care that you're feeding intel back to a null block, because we're not a null block. Like, I don't.
I'm not feeding intel back to a null block, dude. I'm a high
I'm not
sec
saying you
crab.
are. No, I'm not saying you are. I'm sorry that.
Spod,
that made the
interesting that you thought that applied to you.
No, I didn't.
Because I'm
I
the
wasn't
one that-
actually trying to call you out there, Tony. That's why. Maybe he is, though.
Well, now that he seems
Well,
quite insecure
is-
about it, yeah.
The thing
That's
is,
funny.
if I get accused of working for any null block, it's usually goons. So
Oh yeah, same hat, dude. Yeah.
I know, right? Fuck that shit.
One of them's +5, one of them isn't.
Really, I'm kind of curious to hear your weigh in on this. I guess, how would you feel if you made making a agreement with Stribog?
Oh, we've done this. We've gone in this circle for ages now. Can we have a different topic?
Like, there's no advantage to us making like a deal with Stribog. Like, if I was like,
Maldavius
hey,
has answered all this.
hey, we want to put alt corps or whatever into Podchvin or something, and they're like, oh, we can maybe do that, and like it's just going to create more drama later, right? It's they picked their side, and it is what it is.
If you want to see it that way, that's pretty disappointing.
Well, show me an alternative path.
I already have. I've told you.
We've done
You guys
this.
have every opportunity to come and talk to us, and you're choosing goons because you see a goon behind every blade of grass, and it's honestly.
Will you break any agreement you have currently with goons?
Why would we break any agreement?
So the answer is no. So we can't have an agreement with you, right? Like that's how it works.
But the
right?
agreement doesn't preclude you working together, Vily.
It doesn't.
I know, but any agreement we have would be based on us, persecuting our war against goons in Podchvin, right?
So it's you that's immovable, Vily.
Correct.
Sure.
All right, so I think we can move on to the next topic.
quietly move along.
All right, so CSM. So CSM is starting to wind down a little bit. I guess question for all the CSM candidates here is, how do you feel that your campaigns went? Is there anything you would have done better? Or think of it like a post-mortem before.
I wouldn't have started so early. I wouldn't have started doing interviews as soon as the interviews began, because it was weeks and weeks and weeks ahead of CCP activity starting. I wouldn't have done that. I would have left it until later.
How many times did you repeat yourself?
It's more that the bigger problem is that I expended those interview options early on.
Right, okay, so
people weren't paying attention when he was putting out the
Yeah.
message, kind of thing.
Smart. But the rest of you guys, how do you believe what do you believe went well, and what could you have done better?
Honestly, I really liked the debates, like especially the ones that I was having with you, Phantomite. Those were a lot of fun.
They were intense, and that's where the real fun happens.
I agree. I like those intense debates. I think that I would do more debates, but less of the just stand up and speak about myself stuff. I find that I don't really like doing that. I
It's
don't like
like an
sitting there on
endurance
stage.
test, isn't it? In a way.
Yeah, I love it. To be honest with you,
proving that you want that you're all unstoppable.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that, to be honest. Like those battle royales, man, those were super fun. And I think I would do more of that kind of stuff and less of the stuff of like, I'm just going to stand up here and be like, "Hello, I am this. This is what I do." Like I don't think people get a really good idea for who you are from those types of situations. I think they get a good idea for who you are and what you stand for when you're, pressed in upon in a, battle royale. I think it's very fun to do that too.
I'm gonna say about the battle royale is I should have spoke up more because I had some really interesting ideas and thoughts, but people kept speaking, so it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna wait my turn, and that didn't work out so well.
Got to be more aggressive.
That's the problem with me is that like I'm more inclined to let someone finish what they're saying and try not to interrupt them, but yeah, that's what I need to work on. Is to actually like speak your point. Don't let people talk over you.
I wouldn't have wasted my time with the battle royale if I had better hindsight.
What was the enlighten me? Because I think I missed the battle royale. What was it? Enlighten me.
It was DTM's CSM roundtable thingamabob talk show.
I call it like 10 minutes.
And every 15 minutes or so, the audience votes for who they want to keep on. The person in one of the top 2 spots decides which of the bottom 2 people gets booted off.
Just for clarity, I let Phantom White win.
Yeah, you let me win. That's how it works.
No, you didn't.
No, I did put Spot on my ballot afterwards, though.
Yeah, DTM asked me, I didn't realize it was a popularity contest thing. I was like, oh, God.
It was funny, though. Like, it was actually pretty cool getting to meet everyone during that and just kind of clash, And I think that was the best part about it, is it was really high intensity. There was a lot of, like, really, passionate talks on there. And you can really find out who a CSM candidate is in situations like that. That's cool. And I got to meet all of you guys through it. So it was actually fantastic.
It would be really cool if there could be another interesting format for interviewing and debating halfway through the term of the CSMs. But the issue would be is that you're now limited to 10 people and there is no longer the drive to get your name out there at that point. You don't need to be out and about in the public with anywhere near as much of the same fervor as before.
Oh, actually, going off topic for a quick second. I do have a question for you, Vily. Obviously, you have made it clear that it's a case of exterminating goons. I'm just a kind of brainless line member now, but why does the TTT agreement still exist? Essentially,
I already had this argument 3 times with Vily last year.
Well, I didn't listen to that.
And I get it.
Just for my
Tell you what, could I have a quick go at that, and then Vily will be able to confirm or modify it.
Well, just to clarify one point before you go into the TTT stuff, I never said this was about exterminating goons. I said this was a war of extermination. The terms are foundationally different. Goons choose to use the extermination thing as a rallying cry, so it is kind of what it is.
I mean, you did use the word exterminate.
Yes, I know. I said it was a war of extermination, a war to the death. There was a third.
So you do want to exterminate them?
No, the difference between a war of extermination and me trying to exterminate someone is a war of extermination means one side will be exterminated at the end. Not that I think that the goal is to exterminate them and make them all quit playing the game. I want to defeat them in the game EVE Online and break the organization that is Goonswarm.
Are you saying that if it's a war where one side gets exterminated, that if you lose, then you're
we're the ones getting exterminated, right? Like extermination doesn't mean quit. Like in any normal sense of the any normal person knows it's just another way to say destroy, right? But like goons have used it as some weird rallying cry that we're here to try and make them quit the game. When
So what do you
literally
mean
the
by
paragraph
exterminate then, if not making them quit the game?
destroy their organization, defeat Goon Swarm. Like that is
Yeah.
to beat them in a video game. Like,
Okay.
like they try to personalize it, and it's
Okay.
always so like.
I think no, I think I
boys.
get what you're saying, but I think using the word it can, while saying that we don't want to exterminate them, we want to exterminate them. Essentially, I think you've made a poor choice of words there. I mean, I get your point.
What I'm trying to say is the personalization isn't real. Like we're not out to make anybody quit the game. We're just out to beat their organization. Extermination usually just means a more thorough destruction than traditional destruction, right? It's and we are all about that. So I mean,
Are you
I think
saying that by exterminating a group, they won't quit the game?
correct.
You saying that that is not the case? Like if you
Correct.
exterminate,
I-
absolutely go down
Vily,
every route and
I-
exterminate every one of their allies,
Would I be
not-
right in
It's
saying that
almost
you
like
want
you can
the
read-
organ?
It's almost like you can read the quote exactly after the War of Extermination quote, and it will tell you exactly what I mean.
You don't want goons to exist. You don't want the players that make up goons to be gone.
Correct.
Okay, all right, I get that.
All right.
But what if
Alright.
goons disband and change their name to something else?
They'd
What's
still be
that then?
goons. They'd still be
That would
goons.
still be the Goon Swarm organization, right? Like to me, they're like not, as I've said many times, 95% of the players in Goons could be the players in Test, and 95% of the players in Test could be players in Goons. Like the overlap in terms of your average, video game nerd is like very little, right? Like there's just we're all nerds playing a spaceship video game. We all like to think we're above and beyond some, norm, but we're just people who started at different points and got to different finishes. So when I think that, the Goon Swarm organization is the problem, and I'm saying it's the literal organization, not the players. The players are just dudes like everybody other dude. The culture of Goon Swarm is probably the most problematic piece of anything, right? And to me, that is just something that has to be chased after and defeated over and over and over again. Elsewise, it becomes pervasive and, the community falls apart and is destroyed. That's my opinion. People disagree with me, and that's fine.
I mean, I think that the reasoning should be as simple as if there's only two large groups in the game, then if they don't go to war, the game's mashed.
Well, that, I mean, obviously plays a part. Like, we, before the war, we were like, okay, well, there's 3 groups in EVE. We have to side with one of them to start a major war, so...
Well, whoever moves first gets to pick who they pair up with.
Well, neither side was going to move unless one of the other sides moved, right? So somebody had to take that first step and that first leap, because everybody else was gun shy to do so. So we're like, all right, well, we'll fucking do it.
So going back on my question, obviously you mentioned your mission is to, or your aim is to defeat goons. Do you not believe that the removal of goons from that agreement would accelerate?
It would help a little, but I mean, generalized goon finances are not like weak enough that the couple hundred bill they get a month from the TTT is going to change much. And the reality is the TTT was designed to be an organization outside of EVE nullsec politics, even if it comes into the discussion more often than not. If we would have put this.
Vily, the way I understand it is that any fighting over a Keepstar in high sec is horrific.
That is
Ferox
absolutely
grinding
true.
for weeks on end.
That is absolutely true, and the
It's
high
not
sec
fun
mechanics
for
just don't support war well. It's one part
on
of
that
it,
scale.
absolutely. Well,
maybe if Keepstars
even
weren't
on the
allowed
lower
to be
scale,
in high sec, it would help.
Even on the lower scale, like we've been fighting a little bit of Dark Side and some other groups, and it's like mechanics in high sec are just not like they have the weirdest slew, let's say, of mechanics because there's no interdictor bubble, so you can't mass tackle anything. The safety problems, the no smart bomb problems, so things like ECM drones are all but like unkillable to a degree. Like the way logistics work and people getting random what do you call it, kill rights.
If I were managed to make it for another year on the CSM, and I said to CCP that the game could be improved by disallowing Keepstars being anchored in high sec, would you support that?
Not really, no. I honestly
Why
don't
not?
think the Keepstar is like fundamentally the problem. Like people always say, it's like, oh, it's because it's a Keepstar, that's why we can't shoot it. It's like, if that was a fucking faction Fortizar, the difference would be basically zero. It's a little easier to harass, but anybody that goes to harass it knows what they're up against. Like the
So
fact
if
that
it's
there's
if
5,000
it's
people that are going to
fundamentally
show up to
horrific,
defend it is the thing that keeps people from attacking.
If
Not that
it's-
it's a Keepstar.
so is it a case that this type of trade shouldn't be allowed to happen in high sec because you can't effectively or fight or in an entertaining way fight over it, or should CCP put significant work into giving people opportunities to not have to be part of large blocks, thereby making them huge? Do we get rid of this trade, or do we reduce the size of blocks?
So when you say get rid of this trade, I assume you mean remove the ability to offshore.
Yes.
I don't know. I think so. Like the thing is, like the offshoring problem is like a foundational like design choice problem, right? Because CCP said we want markets in player made stations to create risk profiles to go live in them, but then at the same time they also leave G244 sitting there where there's no risk profile, right? So obviously everybody still uses G244. At the same time, you then have the issue where the tax is lower in citadels, and if you equalized it to the same as NPC stations, then nobody would use citadels, right? So it's more than just one level. The problem then becomes, how do you continue to incentivize
Activity,
citadels
competition,
and activity, and and
let's
risk
call
and all
it
these other things?
competition. Yeah,
Sure. How do you incentivize competition at the same time as the other things? And I haven't been able to really come up with a good solution to offer. And
well,
I've
it's either
certainly
got
thought
to
of
be
it.
get rid of this. If there's no way to make it so that it's got competition, if there's no way to design this so that the competition is fun, then we either need to reduce the size of. Well, I mean, you already agree about groups are too large, so I guess that's the way you go with it, rather than this thing needs to be removed from the game.
Well, the thing is, the TTT is a group that is larger than all other groups, right? Like the consortium, I guess you could call it.
It's the cartel. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Like
really what that is.
you have goons and Pappy and everybody that's involved.
I don't have a problem with cartelling. That's an incredibly EVE Online things to happen. I
like
have
that.
a problem with the fact that there's no way to unseat that cartel.
There is a way to unseat that cartel. I just don't want to explain it in depth how to do so. But
well, I understand that a cartel is the only way to do this because there's no fun to be had fighting over it, so you might as well do it like this.
The cartel is the most efficient way to make money doing this. It's not the only way to do it by any means.
So you would fight over it? I mean, I wouldn't blame you for saying no, because it looks like it would be horrible.
There's a difference between would and could, right? Like, would we fight over it? Like, we're in control of it. Why do we want to fight over it? Like, if you're saying if we're in a position where we don't own it,
the only way that you retain control is from support of the other people the other groups.
Correct.
To stop them from attacking it.
To a degree, correct. Yeah. Like right now, we could, in theory, remove goons from the TTT agreement, and we would still be able to hold it for a while. And then, depending how the war goes, then, maybe they go live in high sec.
The incentives are too high, given that everything defaults to cartelling is the best way to do it, rather than to fight over it.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is a stable TTT is worth about 3 times more than an unstable TTT, right? Like, that's the kind of the contextual problem.
So you're being offered money or fighting here, and the money is just so large that it wouldn't make sense to go with the fighting route.
Correct. Like, it's more efficient.
So should this type of trade be removed from EVE?
No, I honestly don't think this type of fighting should be removed from EVE, but there should be adjustments made to it. Like, here's the interesting question. Let's say you removed G244. What happens the next day?
The other G244 becomes the marketplace.
Okay, let's say you removed the ability to trade in NPC systems. NPC stations.
I mean, most immediately, the economy would collapse.
Sure.
Yeah, if
Maybe
people
in its
couldn't trade
current
in
form.
NPC
In its
stations,
current
that-
form,
that
it would need a
totally
kind
be-
of transition to do it, but there would always be somewhere that was a hub compared to everywhere else. Whether it would be as big, that's a different question.
right. So the hubs become player stations in the same area. Like ICY controls the majority of them. We control the Forge one. That would kind of become the default. And obviously, I let me be clear. I don't support doing this. You now create a situation where you've increased the value of that market by a factor of fucking 10 or 15, right? So now it's it's truly making the obscene ISK that people think we actually make now.
But the problem with
And-
that is you guys would then have that amount of ISK in order to defend it, so it's a self-serving cycle like that.
Right,
ends up being
right. So
untenable.
I like that doesn't work either. Like as I said, I'm not in support of actually doing this. I'm just trying to work through,
The
the
logic
cause
of
like
Yeah.
because I can see at least that first order effect that it like just like, oh, here, I'll take 10 for a month, that'll be great. And to me that actually probably does remove the ability for people to contest it, because then you've got so much money that you can pay people absurd amount of money just to like cover it and protect it.
What would you say about making NPC stations more competitive in the market versus Citadels?
Well, do you mean making Citadels less competitive?
That too. Either
Yeah.
of those things.
I mean, I think you can do that to a small degree, but like the difference, like the value of safety is so high that I think you would be surprised. Aside from like once again like TTT where people know it's secure, and a couple other locations, people are for the most part not willing to leave their shit in fucking player stations, right? Because that I don't want to have my stuff destroyed, put into asset safety, all the rest at all, right? And nobody does. So you have to, like, it's not competitive now, I don't think, in many ways, aside from like a very few set. Like here's an interesting thing. What would like let's say Asbel's had a higher or a lower tax how would I do this? I'd say you leave like the Keepstar market tax the same, and then you increase NPC by 1%, but decrease or find a way to allow like Asbels or Fortizars to trade at a different level, or you create a new trade station or something. I don't know. I'm
left your channel.
What would you say about NPC stations having the same tax rate as player-owned stations?
You just kill any trade in player-owned stations from like then on. Like nobody will ever use a player station aside from like their.
It kind of feels
HQ.
like a seesaw, but a very binary one, where it's either going to all default over to player ones, or it's none of it's going to do it. And both of them have their problems.
I mean, the thing is a station that is a market, right? It should be there out of convenience for the players in that general area because they don't have a better choice for that area. We have a market that we run specifically because Pochvin is hell. It's really hard to get stuff in and out. So by running a market, we allow our people to be able to get stuff.
Yep.
If a market is up just because it's more competitive than an NPC station, the market's always going to win. So there's got to be some kind of a solution in there to either level the playing field or make it so that markets are specifically put down by players because there are no other options.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really disagree with that. Right? Like it's about finding the balance and everything, right? Like right now, the balance is
but what I'm
not
saying
good
is
in
that
Jita, but is the balance good everywhere else?
Because of the way the game works, the balance can only either be completely weighted in one direction or the other. So, I mean, I'm wondering aloud if it's possible for there to be a balance. I'm saying I reckon that maybe there is no way to balance it.
Well, once again, I ask the question, like, do we think the balance between NPC and Citadel tax is fine everywhere else besides the Forge region?
I think right now it is always better to trade in a player-owned station if they have the taxes set low. Like there's no reason not to for all of those. It is an incentive, it's incentivizing people to trade there over trading in an NPC station, especially when the ISK, black holes. It's just kind of how it is. If they leveled that, there would be less incentive for corporations and alliances to put down markets, which means that there'll be less markets in the game overall. And the one benefit that you get at that point is tether. How many people here have died on Jita Undock? Because I know I have. That happens. You just
never, because I use an Insta.
Even with Insta,
I just use the Tranquility Trading Tower.
I mean, that's the thing though, is if you have a player-owned station, the advantage then, if it's not a tax advantage, would be the tether. the tether's a pretty big deal. Even if you have, you know, an instant.
But nobody is going to use a station like Perimeter for the advantage of tether compared to Jita, right?
Correct. I think that's the only one that dies in this agreement, like in this change. If there was a change that was made that makes it so that, you know, the taxes are the same between player-owned stations and, you know, actual NPC stations, the only one that really gets impacted heavily that I can think of would be that one.
Then you're not paying attention, because every single region in the game has a trade hub, like, you know, and all of them become NPC stations instantly. Right?
Yeah, but not all of them are next to, you know, Jita 4.4.
Correct.
And the reality is the ones like if you Google EVE Online trade hubs, only like the top 3 are any good for anything. The rest are a mess.
Right, because like unfortunately the problem I'm trying to what I'm trying to say is that it's weighted one way in Perimeter, but it's weighted the reverse way everywhere else, and that's part of the problem. Right? Like we're trying to solve the situation of, you know, how do we, you know, fix market hubs? But the problem is in Perimeter, it favors the Citadel too much. Everywhere else, it favors the NPC station too much still. Right? So you're trying to solve a specific problem with a generalized problem, where the generalized problem is actually the reverse of the singular problem. Do you guys get what I'm saying?
I mean, I think overall what we're all trying to figure out here is just a way to either make this be worth fighting over and be fun fighting over, or to get rid of it. I think those are the only two eventualities that would solve the problem.
Yeah, because the thing is right now it's not even fun to fight for it, because what are you really fighting for, right? Like if you want to fight,
well, it's the combat itself is soul destroying because of high sec mechanics.
Exactly, I agree, and that's
well, high sec mechanics just don't scale well into tie-dye, right? You lose all of the force multiplying options that null sec and low sec have, so you're basically in a situation where it's entirely n+1, which many people talk about as, you know, the bane of their existence, which rightfully it probably is. And, you know, then you're in a situation where it's just terrible.
I mean, at that point, are we just talking about changing high sec fight mechanics, though? Because to be honest with you, yeah, it is an advantage to have an NP, like have a player-owned station doing a market, but you can't beat it because it's, you know, the game won't allow you to. Frankly, like if you have
high sec fight mechanics are usually not really scaled past, you know, 40 or 50 people to begin with. You know, it's very rare you have large fights in high sec, just because there's so little resources in high sec that.
So the Keepstar as a structure is an unbalanced thing to have be allowed to be dropped into high sec.
Sure.
I agree that I don't think that having a Keepstar in high sec makes a lot of sense. Just like having a Titan in high sec doesn't make a lot of sense. Like if you look at even just like the lore related stuff of the game, why would Concord allow that? Like that is a massively ridiculous amount of advantage for any type of corporation or alliance inside of a high sec space. Like it doesn't make sense to me.
But once again, my point goes back to, you know, a Fortizar would do much the same job. It's
no, because a Fortizar.
Yeah, but nobody goes to a Fortizar as market. You want to go to a Keepstar because it's classy.
You'd go to our faction Fortizar. You know, it's like, I hate to put it like this, but like we've talked about the contingencies of losing the TTT, and like we've got the faction Fortizars there ready to go or the extra Keepstar there ready to go if required. It's just one of those things where the core thing that protects the TTT is not that it's a Keepstar, it's the players. And yes, the
sheer
Keepstar
number
helps.
of players.
I mean, the thing is it's both, though. You can't just say, oh, it's not because it's a Keepstar, because otherwise you wouldn't have dropped a Keepstar. That's the whole point. It's much harder to kill than a Fortizar. That's, you know, we all know that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. It gives you a little bit more advantage, like 100%. But what I'm saying is that the Keepstar is just one part of the bigger puzzle, not the bigger puzzle that is supported by the numbers. You know, the Keepstar can be reinforced by literally 20 dudes. Like, it takes... Because I remember defending it, you know, sitting in the gunner seat against 20 fucking Leshaks with their fucking Logi as they're reinforcing it, like, because we fucked up a war deck mechanic, like, at the start of the TTT wars, or whatever you want to call them. And, you know, there's very little you can do, because, you know, there's just not much defensive strength in actual Keepstars when you don't have a Doomsday or a PDS or any of the really powerful stuff. But, like, I don't have a good answer for this. Like, like, please don't misunderstand me once again, because I know I'm the guy who reaps some of the benefit here.
Mm.
But like, I do recognize there is an imbalance towards this, but I don't think it's the like. I also see the other side. It's not the big imbalance that many people think it is either.
Sure, I think that's fair. I mean, the thing is everybody who's involved in the conversation on this, it's more just coming up with ideas of like what could possibly happen, because everybody here is involved in some way or another with, either being like, man, they make a lot of money off of that and there's no real effective counter in high sec, or man, I own this and, we should be able to own such things because we put the time and invested and have all the people to back it up. So like, there's a lot of
Well,
trains of
the
thought
annoying
there.
thing is to hear there's no effective counter when I know there's many effective counters.
It's just there's no effective counters at scale, right? Like, let's say that you
No,
take,
there's definitely some there's some effective counters that actually scale better than the
Sure.
defensive
So
abilities.
let's take the normal high sec thing, right? A million Tristans, million Vexers, all dropping drones on a thing. Like, we've seen that before where people are doing that in high sec because it's hard to counter, right? Because there's no smart bombs, there's no PDS or anything like that. The problem is in tie-dye, drone mechanics start to break down. They're some of the first things that start to break down. So if you have enough people on grid to fight a Keepstar in high sec, you're going to run into tie-dye, and the one major effective counter that most people do in high sec doesn't work as well anymore. I mean, would you disagree or
Disagree with what? Sorry.
with what I said?
Like I didn't understand like the core point you said, like that like the game breaks down in tie-dye 100%, but
Yeah, but I mean the thing is if you can't use drone damage against a citadel in high sec, that's really 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 rough comparatively. So the idea of like, oh, the PDS is the only thing that keeps it safe, and it's not there in high sec. Drones disappear in high sec. If you have tie-dye, tie-dye ruins drones. Like, it absolutely.
see,
ruins
my
drone
experience has
damage.
been the reverse, in that it overpowers drones because they're all but impossible to target at scale. With that being said, like drones are one of the many ways in which the TCCP can be truly messed with at scale. Just one.
So what would you say is the effective counter to what's on field then? Having a a high sec Keepstar. What would you say is an effective counter to that? Something that is good for the game that people could actually do to fight such a thing. Besides just, as we said, N+1.
I hate to say this, but I'm not gonna share the theory crafting I understand about how to destroy my own stuff. Like that's not like, especially from the position of the person who like understands the weaknesses greater than anybody, right? So like,
He won't, but I will. The first thing you need is determination, and then you go on from there.
yeah,
Oh.
honestly, like as much as
This
like
isn't
that's a bit of a
Facebook,
meme.
mate. Can you give us something a bit clearer?
Can I buy
No,
that in
he's not
044?
wrong. Like,
Gonna tell me to live, laugh, love next.
Random quotes from Greek philosophers. Right. After that, we'll go back to the whole CSM subject. So, obviously, how long has this been going on now? Anyway, your whole campaigning.
Months.
Yeah, months. I think you and I started about the same time, Phantomite. It's like
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's a while. It's like months now. Months before you could even apply. Like a month before you could even apply.
So, give me your predictions on who is going to make it.
I think Vily's gonna make it.
Not before me though.
I think Kenneth Field's going to make it, not going to lie.
yeah, Kenneth's gonna make it for sure.
Richmond, actually, I don't know if he's got it. Like, I think he is because he's got Fraternity's vote. He's number 2 on their ballot.
Oh, that's really helpful.
The maths say, based on publicly confirmed support, no, but if the things he tells me are true, maybe, when it comes to Rich.
I'm not going to lie, I have no idea if I made it or not. It's a real toss-up.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I mean, I've got all the people that, are allies and friends and stuff that have contacted me and said like, oh, I voted for you. And it's pretty cool. It's a really cool thing. But at the end of the day, I have no idea. I have absolutely no clue.
One I do kind of regret and kind of made a mistake on was going on DTM's stream and doing the interview.
Oh, why was that a mistake?
So it wasn't a mistake as in like I got like, well, I don't want to say I didn't get screwed, because I got screwed because it was my own fault, basically. I didn't research what I was. There were things I was confident about, and I was like, yes, these are the things I want to touch on, but I didn't. I should have done more research. So I should have researched into, okay, I know how my experience in PvE works, but I should do more research into how other parts of the game do PvE and different kind of things. Also, when I was asked that question about what's the difference between a streamer asking for ISK and the whole I want ISK scenario, I probably should have just said, I don't know much about that. CCP banned the ISK and said this isn't cool. I support that decision. I shouldn't have gone into the whole thing of what was bad and they shouldn't have done that. I kind of dug myself into a hole, because the whole premise was, what's the difference from, Iron Bank making money off of people spending in his casino versus streamers saying like, oh, well, give me ISK. I mean, the clear difference is one's gambling and one's just donating ISK. And I totally fucked up that whole question.
I mean, I've already said that I would have not started so early.
I would have not started so damn late.
To be honest with you, I'm really glad that I started early. Like, the thing is Triglavian stuff, people don't really know about us. They don't really know about what we're doing. So starting early allowed me to meet a lot more people, and I don't think I would change that. So I'm interested why you feel like you shouldn't have started so early, Phantomite. Is it just like a lot of stress?
Because starting early when when the audience isn't anywhere near as attentive or numerous. It's later on that people start watching, and if I do an interview with somebody, I can't go back and just have my interview again.
Sure, but if people are, if they meet you in the beginning and they decide in the beginning, man, I like this guy, I like the things that he's saying.
But what I'm saying is a lot of people only tune in later in the process.
Sure.
And so they won't see my interview, they'll see what's live, and they'll watch from then on for everybody else.
Yeah, I've seen the opposite effect, I guess, because people who saw me in the first interviews are people that are messaging me now saying they voted, and that's
so if people are genuinely interested, they're going to follow up.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, huge portions of the voter base aren't genuinely interested. They're just there to get whatever crosses their radar, and if it sounds like a laugh, they'll vote for it, and that's not an insignificant number of votes. True. And of course, you want them because you're not getting them; they're going to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, for
it's
me,
the game we got to play.
Right. I mean, at the same time, for me, like, I want to get out there and start talking to people because, like, I don't know, this is a normal thing for me from like design world, right? Like, I have ideas for things that I'd like to change with the game. Some of those ideas were not very good in the beginning. They're better now because I went out and did those interviews, did talk to people, got feedback from people. They told me, hey, this idea sucks. Here's the reason why. And they showed me a different perspective from a different part of Eve, right? Like, Eve is not one game. It is many, many, many different games in different areas of space, in low sec and faction warfare, in null sec and wormhole space. Like, all of these areas of space are very different, and those people experience the game in very different ways. I only have my perspective as a player for the areas that I've been. So by getting in early and being able to debate and talk often, I can get all of those different perspectives and make my platform better for the general audience of Eve, which makes the game better overall if I win. So that's kind of how I see it, is like, get in early, talk to people, interact with people, change your own ideas and your own biases and your own feelings about the game, and move from there.
I totally agree with Mal on that one. Except from my perspective, it was better to get in early, fuck up horrendously, and then get better so that once the campaign time actually starts, I have a better grasp on things. Which, funny enough, during my DTM interview, I was for sure thinking that, all right, I've got one thing up on the candidates that no one else has. I've got experience in game QA. And then when DTM said, oh, well, what about Maldavius? He's worked in QA. Immediately, I was just like, I think I said an audible, well, fuck, there goes my golden ticket.
You shouldn't feel that way, though. Like, that's one of the biggest things, man. Like, yeah, I did QA for a long time, but like, so did you. You were in the trenches as well. You understand how it works. You understand how testing games works as well. and that's really valuable. So I hope you didn't feel devalued just because someone else had the same experience. Seriously.
Oh no, it wasn't a system of devalue. It was more of like a system of, okay, this is my one thing I've gotten. And it's like, okay, someone else has got this. Now it's a
now what?
now it's a battle.
Let's fight over QA.
I mean, that's the whole reason why I brought up the whole, like, hey, that issue you experienced in Pachman sounds like a Sev 1 Pry 1 won't fix, which it's happened to me before and it sucks. I've never seen it like out in the wild before.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've talked to a lot of people about is many of the issues that I've been seeing with Pochvin and with some of the patches that are recent, they seem like really low-end QA checks, like literally just does the content work kind of stuff. And you know what that is. You understand that more than anyone. Is like, these are basic, basic sanity checks, basic ones that are just like, hey, can I take this gate? No, I can't. Don't release that. Like basic weird stuff. And it worried me a bit. It worried me about CCP's QA process. It worried me that maybe the QA team wasn't getting enough time, or they weren't getting enough information, or they weren't being managed correctly in a way that was making them effective. Because it's never a case of the developer is lazy. It's never a case of the developer doesn't care. It's always an issue of some kind of management problem or some kind of resource problem. And it sucks because in the community, in any game community, most people will always rely on the developers suck, the developers don't care, blah, and part of the reason that I started streaming game development in the first place, because I've been streaming on here now, partnered for like 3.5 years, is to get rid of that, is to dispel that, because game developers are just people, and people can make mistakes, people can overlook things, and they're not God's gift to humanity, and they're also not completely lazy nerds that sit around and just play video games all day. They're somewhere in the middle, and I see that all too often. So yeah, no, having QA experience is super beneficial. It really is. It is incredibly beneficial. So don't beat yourself up just because somebody else has it. And I hope that CCP starts realizing that there's such an emphasis on putting out good patches that don't have these really, really critical, easy to find issues, and that changes the game for the better.
I agree with that. Anyone else have anything else? I think that's a pretty good finisher. Not gonna lie.
There was one thing. There's been a couple of you guys have not been on the show yet. I always like to ask this question. I'm pretty sure, considering the amount of campaigning you guys have done, I'm pretty sure it's not an original question anymore. But can, hypothetically speaking, if you had a blank check, what would be, and there was no restraints in it, what would be your dream change, or what would you want to change about the game?
Well, quite frankly, I would want to be modifying making small modifications to a very large number of features in particular that both require and then reward that you endlessly grow in size. I would modify these things such as mining to not require that you be part of a blob to be able to do it in any effective competitive manner.
If I had a blank check to fix the game on just, one major feature, I would fix how CCP implements content into the game, which means probably a full infrastructural change to EVE. Right now, it's really hard for them to add new content. It's really hard for them to fix current content, and they don't have a way of modularly adding new stuff, which leads to problems everywhere.
They do.
If they had an easier job of being able to add stuff and be able to modify things that currently exist, then they would be able to do a lot more than they currently can.
So they've actually solved that problem. They have recently they've solved that problem. They've recently begun to use a service called Darkly.
It's not solved. I think it's starting to go in that direction.
They have begun that road. Is my point.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I mean, that's something that I think is absolutely needed for this, because when you have these types of systems that are super old, and it's like, oh, I don't know if we can fix that. Oh, that's pause code. That's code word for this is spaghetti. This is incredibly hard for a developer to work on, or we have to reverse engineer our own system to figure out how it was implemented in the first place and then go fix it, after that. That's a huge amount of development time spent on that. That's really rough on the developers that have to get involved with that. It's really rough on the business as a whole, and it's also really rough on the players because it diminishes the amount of new content that they get or the quality of that content. So them going in a direction to be able to make that easier to manage and easier to add new stuff in or easier to modify things that currently exist, that's the biggest thing to me. Out of everything that we could possibly do to the game, that would be the absolute biggest change that they could make because everything else becomes easier after that point.
It was one of those things that appeared on CC maybe a week or two ago that a lot of people didn't notice and didn't realize the potential implications of.
I just revert this scarcity bullshit and be done with it.
Yeah, I hate scarcity too. I'm down with that.
I mean, the point of scarcity is that the mineral economy is absolutely just screwing the game right now, or was beforehand. And so it's just screwing it in a completely different way now, ready for, allegedly, a timely reintroduction of materials in a different balance.
I understand why scarcity came into play, and it was like because we need to drain the wealth of these massive capsule organizations. Like this massive war, like we're in this situation where, you know, goons are camping the gate with hundreds of thousands of ISK worth of Titans and supers just camping the gate, and we can't get in, and we can't, you know, bust through the gate, and we're constantly going back and skirmishing back and forth and literally losing billions of ISK every single night. Like it blows my mind how much ISK we're able to lose and how it's still not stopping the war effort. Like CCP wanted to drain our wallets to give us, to make it so that we could undo the damage.
They wanted to drain assets.
Pretty much.
Instead, everyone blocked the assets and fucked off.
I understand why scarcity is a thing, but that doesn't mean I like it. And if there was any other way CCP could have done it to sort of like drain those faucets a little bit more, I think that would be much preferable. Like, I don't know, maybe just spitballing here, but maybe like a system where miners could donate their ore to an empire and gain LP or faction standing or something like that. Because in my experience, like the only way to make money off of ore is you sell it. And if you don't sell it, you stockpile it. And what a lot of miners will do is they'll wait and they'll stockpile their ore until they can get the very best price for it. And thus creates this whole situation of people just having so much ore that, you know, a battle like M2, where literally hundreds of Titans was lost, is still able to be replaced and can keep the war going. That's nuts. In the past, the type of war that happened in M2, like the type of flub up that happened in M2, and I'm sorry, Vily, to bring this up, but like that would have ended the war. It didn't. Pappy recovered. That's insane.
Such is life. I mean, if that risk was there that those things couldn't be replaced, people wouldn't have used those Titans in those numbers. But I think that would be a good thing. If people weren't using Titans in those numbers, then we wouldn't need to. That's just another reason to need to be part of a gigantic group. So, you know, it may be extremely cool to see Titans fighting each other, but I think that seeing them fighting each other on that scale is just an indicator of the poor health of the economy.
No, I agree with that. I mean, the thing is I remember a long time ago, Titans were like, you know, it's, oh my God, it's so epic to see that. But now it's like 300 Titan battle. You know, like it's still really cool. It's still really amazing, but kind of loses a lot of the prestige. You know, it loses a lot of the point and prestige. So I could see where CCP was trying to go with the scarcity thing, but to be honest with you, it hurt players so badly in many, many other areas of the game rather than
well,
just there.
It hurt people in ways that they had become comfortable with and got used to.
I could see that, yeah. But you know, if you're having such a so many diminishing problems on smaller groups throughout Eve, where suddenly they can't compete or they don't want to undock because they can't, you know, replace something. The age-old rule in Eve is, if you know, if you can't afford to fly it, don't fly it. What if you can't afford to fly anything? And that's like that for a lot of people. I'm not just talking about no blocks. Like obviously, you know, they've got mass reserve stockpiles. But what about for everybody else? That starts hitting them too. and they don't have the large amounts of ISK that are required to be able to weather that storm. And I don't think that's good.
I don't know if this supports Mal's point, but I rely on SRP. If I don't get SRP, I don't fly.
Yeah, I mean, even look at the ship economy in the game. Everything is going up in cost. Think about any of the people that are, just in high sec or in low sec that are trying to buy those ships to be able to do content every day. What are you going to do if your ship costs 50% or 100% more? And you're still getting the same amount of ISK out of doing, PvE sites. And you're still getting the same amount of ISK out of doing, mining or anything like that. That's going to get harder and harder. Look at an Orca. An Orca's 2 billion ISK now. Think about that.
I think that a problem here is that this should have been going hand in hand with development of the game to not require that you need to use those ships to be competitive as well. And again, I sound like a broken record, and I think that we're all in agreement anyway, so it's not really a point of contention. But groups in EVE need to be a lot smaller and more numerous.
Yeah, I can
no,
agree with
they
that.
don't. But they
No.
need. They
You
can
mean
do
no, they
whatever they
don't?
want.
Yes, they can
So-
do whatever they want, but the game is designed to both encourage them to do it and then reward them for doing it.
Think about it this way, right?
But
You've got
it's easier
you've
not
got
to.
the scarcity
Not
issue,
gonna
but you've
happen.
also got
You can say that,
redistribution,
but
right?
we've already talked about it all. So
Here's the thing, though. CCP tried this. They already tried what you're saying, Phantomite. The redistribution of minerals, the redistribution of materials made it so that null sec, low sec, high sec, and wormhole space all have different materials that they have to put together in order to make these things, which means that they have to either infight for those things or they have to make agreements. The problem is the way that they implemented it, the side effect is everyone wants to be blue with each other. Because now you can't
yes,
make
but that's
anything on
because
your
of
own.
mining mechanics such as the optimum mining is to sit some ships with lots of EHP here in a belt for an hour or longer at a time.
It's not even just that. You cannot get the
it's an
materials you
example.
need. You cannot get the materials you need by siloing in one part of space. So that that increased the likelihood of people working together in order to be able to have a full production line. I think it was a good idea, but the side effect is that we have a lot more people that are willing to blue with each other in order to keep that production line going. So that just promotes large groups. It just does. It was a good idea to try and break up those silos to make it like, oh, you have to work with other people. You have to do something, but it created even larger groups to fight against.
Could you give me an example?
I honestly don't have an example, but can you actually produce anything without having, if you want to make faction, battleships right now, can you actually do that without having gas? No. Can you do anything in just null sec without having low sec and high sec as mining alternatives? No. Like, you have to have that production line that has to work together.
Right, but we don't blue people for that resource.
You just buy it off the market?
Yeah, for the most part.
For the absolutely massive amount of materials that you need, you're saying that you buy all of that off the market.
But nobody's producing anything.
I mean, we don't have a crocite supply that's reliable. We buy it.
I was about to say, but do you buy it all off of JITA or do you buy it off of members that go and mine?
Every producer is going to be different, right, in terms of where they get their stuff. What I'm saying is that there's no large agreements that where we're blue to people so that we can better buy resources from them.
Are you saying that you do have agreements with people you're not blue with to buy those resources?
No. Not that I'm tracking.
Well, if you guys are just buying it off of market, then yeah, I guess I'm wrong on that. But if you aren't, if you're using a bunch of other groups that you have, agreements with to buy certain amounts of materials on maybe a monthly basis or something like that, or irregular sales on that, then yeah, that is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I'm not tracking anything like that. So.
I don't know on top alliance level, but on regular people, no, they just buy it off the market and ship it down or do whatever. It's not.
For sure.
Well, and there are people in Pappy that do go out and mine this stuff in low sec, and there are people in high sec that, I mean, it's not official from what I'm tracking. I can't. Sorry, I used your word, Vily. But one thing that I do know is that there are a lot of people in Pappy that also have high sec alts. So, I guess there is a supply of crocite, and some of that is coming from Pappy internal. It's just it might not be very much.
So at that point, you have kind of two options as an organization. Either you're large enough.
By
to
the way, I
got
to run, guys. See you later. All right.
I'll see you, Phantomite.
Yeah,
At that point, you're either going to have to expand your organization to be able to hit those other types of resource areas, or you're going to have to work with other groups that already have them because you don't either have the manpower or whatever's going on in order to do that yourself. In this case, it looks like Vily, you guys have just expanded and be able to do that because you can do that. You have a ton of people totally available to you. For smaller groups, they can't do that. Now they have to band together. They have to create more coalitions. Smaller groups would have to. So I don't think that this model really does anything to the largest of groups in Eve, but for smaller groups in Eve, they have to change their behavior based on it.
I'm gonna be real. It sounds like both Vily and Mal are kind of right.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is just different perspectives on the same thing, but I don't think he's wrong, and I don't think that I'm wrong in this.
So we're actually coming to roughly 2.5 hours for the show here. Does anyone have any final thoughts or anything last they want to talk about?
I missed the chance because it got too feisty, but I want to drop my Jesus feature idea, if that's quite right, because it's a bit different to what other people have been saying.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So the Jesus feature that I want to see, I'm not going to go down the road of like do X, Y, Z to fix the game because
I'm not. Jesus, you mean the blank check chat?
Yeah, the blank check feature. I'm not going to proclaim that this will fix the game or massively improve the game for certain people in a major way. But what I would absolutely love to see is a litany of changes towards how the market and contracts work, including things like contracts being able to be put into a tradable item of sorts, shares being tradable, contracts with third-party escrow. So that trifecta of 3 items would enable a lot of things that Mr. Hilmar likes to pretend exist in Eve that don't actually exist in Eve. Things like futures and actual loans and contracts like that will become far more common if we have just a small assembly of what seem like relatively minor features. When they work together, they enable quite a insane amount of financial features, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can
For
see
example, if I wanted to do a investment scheme of some sort, the only way I can either do that is I can screw around with the shares interface, which is kind of really dangerous and screwy and quite a high chance of, and I've done this before several times, you press the wrong button and you transfer all the shares to the wrong person. Or, and then you have to also hope that they send you money and then you send them the shares in 2 separate transactions because there's no way to link them. Or you extract the shares as a contract, as an item, and contract them to a person.
You know, it'd be really nice for that. Contracts for citadels that are on grid already, ones that are anchored.
Yeah,
there's
a whole.
I could see that I could see that there'd be a lot of really cool use for that kind of stuff because right now it's like I'm gonna give you the ISK. I hope you give me the citadel. Like it's sort of bad.
Because it's just frustrating that. Especially again, I have to keep poking Hilmar. He often goes and does interviews and talks about these financial miracles in the Eve market that don't really exist, or are close but not quite. Especially things like futures and loans. They only exist on a very very low peer-to-peer basis typically between certain trusted parties. If you want to bring back the classic career choice, because it kind of was a career choice of being a trusted third party, because that's dead because of things like Citadels removing that from the supermarket. You need these kind of contracts. They'll bring that back. They'll bring back a whole. I mean, maybe it'll bring back a whole 3 players, but it'll make the game certainly interesting for me personally.
Yeah, I think the idea of doing just general changes to the financial and contract system would be pretty cool. I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are on all of that in more detail, to be honest with you. Maybe we should talk about it because that sounds cool.
and an endpoint to populate contracts, please. I don't care if you don't let me submit them. I don't think we should submit them, but an endpoint to just push button, receive filled out contract I can approve. Yes, please.
You're talking about for the ESI, right? For being able to just do
an ESI endpoint.
ESI needs some serious help. There's a lot of stuff in there that's just not functional. Like, have you ever tried to pull a bookmark through ESI?
Yes, and that's why you should vote for Spot.
Yeah, for 2 years now, it just returns a blank string. Very cool.
Yeah, there's a number of things that are broken.
Yeah, there's a lot in ESI that really needs some help. So yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm really glad that you're running on that platform because that is something that needs to be changed in the game. Really does.
Be running on it because nobody else would.
I'm gonna be real. That stuff just flies right over my head.
It's basically trying to make Eve the and again things that people are poking in chat. There's certain things like you know we can fix the scarcity problems and whatnot. Like that's not why I'm running personally. It's something that does need fixing, whatnot. But I'm not going to comment on it because I'm stupid. But the market changes I'm suggesting is about making this Eve this magical capitalist super sandbox that CCP kind of claim it is.
Yeah, I mean the thing is it's really in disrepair, and it makes me wonder like who the owner of that is inside of CCP. Do they have a team that's directly assigned?
VSI.
Yeah. Do they have a team that's actually assigned to that?
There is a team that works on it, but it's a little bit of a skeleton crew.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder they just don't have enough, like maybe just enough manpower, because ESI is huge for people creating organizations within the game. It is absolutely enormous. And for being able to build cool tools that do neat things in Eve, I know a lot of you guys out there probably don't care about ESI in any way, but it shapes the way that you play the game, whether you realize it or not. And it's really, really important.
So if I'm not mistaken, is ESI basically a way for external apps to read game data?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's how you interact with the game from outside of the game.
It also allows you to do
primarily reading stuff.
Yeah, it's primarily reading stuff, but you can make it do some other things too, and it's really, really useful. It's used for all kinds of basically any application you've ever used. It's a third-party app, things like Z Killboard, all that kind of stuff. That's all through ESI.
Okay.
And cool. It's funny. There's some people in chat saying fix scarcity first. The thing is it's not about which one you fix first. It's about showing CCP, hey, here are all the pain points, and then them deciding, okay, which pain point is the one we're actually going to hit. You just have to show them everything that's wrong, everything that people are, talking about. Hey, I feel this way. It feels bad. It makes me not want to play the game, and then they go from there. CSM doesn't choose which one of those is actually going to go. That's on CCP's end. We just have to tell them, hey, this is not okay. Here's how players are feeling. Here's what is broken. ESI has problems. Scarcity sucks for people. And then they go from there.
Also, the scarcity train has left the station. It's already planned, scheduled. It's not gonna change by any more inputs.
Yep.
One thing I have heard about scarcity, though, and I've heard a lot of this from Kenneth Feld, is that the reason why a lot of things are so expensive now is because now that everything's been changed and the whole industry update, the big reasons why prices haven't adjusted is because the supply and the people actually going to produce those resources hasn't caught up with the demand. Like there's still a lot of people that are starting to ramp up their production of these minerals and getting these various items onto the markets. And so from what Kenneth has said, once that sort of reaches an equilibrium, things will start to return to normal.
I mean, that might. The thing is a lot of these things, if you've actually looked at the production lines for them, they're incredibly hard to make. Like, let's just look at a Titan now, right? Or, let's look at an Avatar. Do you know an Avatar takes 25 million units of water now? With perfect on everything, it's 16 million units of water. That is 36 characters over 30 days at a 1-day pull on 6 ocean planets each. For every one of those that gets built. And that's not even every cap. Like every other cap ship takes the same. Zernitra takes like 1.6 million units of water. Like some of the stuff that they put in here, it is immense, and the market may recover, but they're literally there isn't anything in the game that can do that. It's like making a Palatine Keepstar. Like there's a huge amount of this. If you look on like Eve marketing tools right now, there's less than 3 million units of water on the market over all of Eve. Last time I checked, that's immense. Like it's so much effort. That is so much effort to build things now. And while I think it's cool, I think it's neat to integrate other areas of the game to do it. I think the numbers probably are too high right now, to be honest with you.
Mm.
Right, and I think I totally agree with that, and I think it's going to be one of those things where we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's impossible to say whether any number is too high or too low or whatever, because the whole rebalance in terms of costing and industry and whatnot, that whole story is not over yet, and until we're even vaguely close to over, we can't really talk too much about it. And I suppose the other side of that problem is we don't know how close we are to it being over. Nobody knows.
Oh, for those who are saying that Titans don't require water in chat, they do. So they have a thing called a capital core temperature regulator now, and that requires 250 units of core temperature regulator each, and each of those units takes 2,500 units of water. So yes, it's 250 times, let's see, times 2,500 times 40 to build a Titan right now. So yes, an immense amount of PI. And that's also chiral structures on there as well of 100 units per one of those 250 as well. It is absolutely immense amounts of PI. Go look at the blueprints. You can check them.
So I've just realized that I haven't actually said my golden feature that I would have if I had an unlimited check. So one thing I would do is in the agency window, I would just put a community tab and then just have all the different Eve streamers in it, just in the game right there, so players can just see it. And so the new players can be exposed to it from right off the bat.
I like that, actually. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I dig that.
I missed it because I was distracted.
So the basic idea is have a community tab in the agency window that just has all the different Eve streams and has all the different organizations. They used to have a thing where they would play organization like billboard videos and different ads for alliances. Where did that go? That was a cool thing. To actually have player organizations being represented and shown off in the game, like in the billboards on different stations in Caldari space. Like that shit was cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure what killed that. It was a nice little thing to have.
Yeah, anything that improves like people's ability to engage with the community like that, yeah, it's an A+. I'd super agree with that, man. Like being able to have someone enter the game, see that there's a streamer on there, maybe go interact with that streamer, find out more about the game, get interested in some kind of a community. That's good. I think that's really good.
And the thing is, like, they wouldn't even have to go through and be like, okay, what streamers do we have and yada yada yada. They already have the partner program. They could just take the streamers from the partner program and just immediately put them in the game, in the agency window. Like they've already been verified. If you didn't like their content or you thought it didn't represent your game well, then why are they a partner? So there's no worry about that. And also, hell, alliance recruitment ads in the agency. Like, there's nothing worse than starting off this game and never finding a group to be a part of. Because I've had friends. Well, granted, he didn't quit the game because of this, but if people just stare in mine and Highsec all day, like I know that there are people out there that like to say, oh well, I just enjoy mine and Highsec all day. It's like, yeah, but it's really not that. Like for most people, they'll do that for a while, realize it's not for them, and just quit. Like I think that's how we lose a great number of players that just end up doing that. If they had a way to immediately just be thrown into this game and say, hey, here's a group of people that go and do really cool stuff. Here's their alliance logo. Go apply to them. I can almost guarantee you that player retention among newer players starting this game would increase significantly.
Related, but very niche grumble. Do you know off the top of your head, how you apply as a corporation to join an alliance?
It is horrible. It is actually
it's
horrible.
the stupidest, most hidden piece of shit. Like word of mouth. Only way to know this. It's a fucking joke.
You have to go into alliances. You have to pull up the list of all alliances in the entire game, which is a sheet that has no pagination. It's literally all on one page. All thousands of alliances that are in the game are on one page. And then they have to go from there and right click it and apply as a corp to get into an alliance. Like, why? Why is this like this?
Oh, and
That's so
as the
weird.
alliance executive, you don't get told that someone's applied to your corp. They have to tell you, and then you have to go and find it.
You have to go and find it as the alliance executor, look to see that it's there, and either reject or approve it. And from there, then you go, okay, cool, this can actually go through. And then you have to tell them that you accepted it.
And then there's a 24-hour timer that nobody knows the exact timings of.
No, it's the whole process has been super weird. Like I've actually gone in there to our applications and just seen like corporations I've never heard of that have applied, and I'm like, I didn't even know they tried to do this. You know, like people that don't even talk to us that have tried doing that.
It's a little crazy. And we're actually really starting to get towards the end of our time here. So now, like, for real this time, anyone have any final thoughts?
Spanish localization win.
Dude, big true. Really big true.
Language.
Like, I don't know if you know this, but my game, as my indie studio, we localized the game into 6 different languages and then localized the price from there. The first one that we did was actually Brazilian Portuguese, which is weird because we're a US based studio, right? And you think like, oh, Brazilian Portuguese is not going to do very well. Because I localized the price where my game is not $10 there, it's actually $3 there, and it makes sense for them in their economy. They're 30 to 35% of our studio's income by localizing the game.
Let me just get my VPN.
That is wild. Like actually wild. Yeah, you could VPN over and buy it if you want to. It's not going to, do anything here or there to me. But the thing is like, this is such a big deal as localizing your game and localizing your prices. Yes, localize the game into more languages. Yes, do this. Do it. That is such a big deal for bringing more players in.
Yeah, but I kind of get why they don't do as many as they do, as many as they should. But the fact that Spanish has been missing for so long is kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is you may want to use analytics from there to see like what kind of players are engaging with this stuff, see if you can do translations for that. There's obviously a sizable Russian amount of people that play Eve. That's great. There should be a Russian translation. There is, and if you get localization teams that are just backed up by the hard data of like how many people are actually engaging from this part of the world, yeah, and Spanish seems like a shoo-in to me. Maybe they have data that says it's not that good of a business move, but dude, yeah, no, I agree. Definitely localize the game. It's funny, you say in chat, localization costs money. Yes, it does, but it makes more every time you do it. If you localize your game into another language, you are almost always making more money than you put into it, like hand over fist. It is such a big deal. And I know that because I do that for my real job. That is what I do, is I make games.
I can confirm localizing does make money. The stuff I've worked on is localized in more languages than I knew existed.
And it's generally one of the cheapest things you can do to improve your income for your game, too.
Well, that about wraps up the show. I'd like to thank all the guests for coming this week. If you're watching the show and you like what you see, then please hit that follow button. New Eden Post streams Eve-related shows throughout the week, including Trash Talk Tuesday on Tuesday, Lasers and Lace on Thursday, and now Between Two Keepstars, not every other Sunday, because I'm going hard with this shit. Anyway, always remember to bubble wrap your Keepstars, and we'll see you next time.